Professor Ayo Asenua. Please give her a round of applause. Now.
Thank you very much. I really must just adopt the protocols because you have one more speech to go. So I will not take too much time. I warmly welcome you all on site and also online to the 3rd International Conference on Artificial Intelligence, enabling fostering of collaboration, enabling training of students, and researchers, bonding of a community criticisms. Today, as a new and much needed trend, academic conferences have also become the avenue for bringing together not just those in the academia, but also the end users of the knowledge produced by academia, of which our students are part, that is industry, as well as government, to the end of fostering or creating sustainable synergy between all the parts. And the idea is that when the knowledge that academia creates engages with industry, then academia is actually not existing as an ivory tower, untouched by the reality around it, but academia is responsive to industry needs. And so through conferences that brings together all the other stakeholders, we set the agenda, and we are also able to communicate the next steps through evidence-based research and data, guiding policy formulation and program design. The importance of contextualizing the relevance of AI and robotics to the ecosystem of the MSMEs in Nigeria in particular, but of course learning from the experience of other countries, because this is an international conference, cannot be overemphasized. And that is largely because at the heart of the development that we also desire are the MSMEs. At this point in time, from the 2022 Human Development Index report, Nigeria ranks 163rd at the lowest rungs of the ladder out of 191 countries of the world. There is no way, this isn't about time to blame the government, but the truth is there is no way we will get out of that state except we grow the economy. And the way to grow the economy is to stimulate the growth from underneath. And that is why we are particularly delighted that this conference is addressing the context of AI, robotics, to sustainable MSMEs in Nigeria. I have no doubt that our select group of keynote speakers, panelists, and other presenters have all worked hard to curate an agenda that will shape the next steps. And I am even more glad that the more people in this hall are the future. As with any relay race, the people holding the baton, the person holding the baton who effectively is like behind, never waits until he gets to the side of the person to whom he or she wants to hand over the baton before he or she begins to stretch out the arm. What we're doing today with the community of students, research students who are here, is that we are stretching out the baton. It is my hope that the future that is here will, even as you are racing forward, also reach out to receive that baton. I want to congratulate everybody who has made this happen, and we are particularly delighted to be able to host this. In closing, let me express the university's gratitude to all our partners who have made this happen year after year. And please permit me to specifically recognize the role of NITDA as well as the role of GIZ in what it is we're doing in advancing our innovation and digital technology ecosystem in the University of Lagos. I thank you all very much for coming. I wish you very, very successful deliberations, impactful, life-changing, and future-defining. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It's now time to listen to the keynote address. And the keynote address will be given by no other person than Dr. Mulang Onando, IBM Research Africa. I have the pleasure to call to this podium Dr. Mulang Onando, IBM Research Africa. And the topic is the frontier of large language models, of large multimodal models, opportunities and challenges for Africa. Please come to the podium. Let's give him a round of applause.
Hello. Hi. This looks like a lecture hall. Yeah, in my other duties, I teach at the University Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, where I interact with a lot of students. And I was invited to this, and I thought to myself, who am I going to meet here? And he told me, Dr. Odumuyiwa. How do you pronounce the name Odumuyiwa, right? I got it. Good. Told me that I'm going to have people who are newbies in technology or AI, people from the government and people from business. I see mostly students here. So before I start, maybe I just want to do a small roll call, right? How many people are students in this gathering? Okay, so I see it's 95% students. And students, all of you are interested in AI, mathematics, and stuff like this, right? Or you guys don't like that? How many people are business people? Business people? Okay. I thought this was SMEs. I was expecting 50. Oh, awesome. And maybe now the administration and people from the government. Good. My name is Dr. Mulang Onando. I work at IBM Research Africa. I research in AI. That is, I sort of sit around, read papers from other people, and once in a while I write my own thoughts. But the specific area where I work on is using generative models for healthcare, right? My discussion today, and in healthcare, there are so many things, like COVID-19 came up recently, and generative AI, we can learn from samples of drugs that existed, for example, right? To be able to bootstrap our discovery process of COVID-19 drugs. So that is my space. That's not exactly the talk I'm going to talk about. Yeah, so I've entitled my talk, Large Language Models, LLMs is large language models, are awesome, but they don't know your governor, okay? So as I go through the journey of this talk today, we are going to look at how awesome LLMs are or foundation models are, and where are they limited? Why don't they know our governor, right? And that's exactly the space where I want you now to think as students and as SMEs, how can we make them understand our governor, right? Okay, so next slide, please. So recently, I am a computer scientist through and through, and I was teaching my younger brother how to program in Python. He's not that young, he's probably 29, but he's a mathematician more than a programmer. So I got to code, and I was coding something to do with fetching data from online, but then keeping track of the time, yeah? So that then after every 30 minutes I fetch some data. And the package for handling time in Python gave me a bit of trouble. And so my first thought was, let me go to Stack Overflow, right? That's where we all go, these people who claim to be programmers. So going to Stack Overflow, I got some code, pasted it there, and it never worked. Then my brother who is learning Python, who I'm meant to be teaching, told me, hey, what is the trouble? And I told him, okay, this thing is not able to work now. And then he told me, send me that code. And I sent him. And in the next 2 minutes, he gave me the exact code which worked. And I was like, how do you do that? You're the one who is learning. And they told me, ChatGPT gave me the answer. And it's not so recent, like I think 3 months ago. And that's the first time I actually understood how powerful ChatGPT has influenced students and practitioners, right? Because us as practitioners, we tend to ignore it, right? We tend to be like, it's just some other large language model. But this particular output, you can see on the right-hand side, there is code that is generated from my errors, right? And I thought that is a good motivation to show you just how powerful these things have become. And it's not getting weaker, it's not getting smaller, it's just going to be bigger. So these models have been researched over time, and they're becoming more powerful, and they're able to do a lot of things. For example, generate code for you. It's not going to replace programmers, but it's going to help us achieve a lot of things, okay? Now, that takes me to a disclaimer. Some of you might be thinking that I generated this presentation with ChatGPT. The disclaimer is I took time to curate a presentation that is going to capture at least 3 groups of people, one of them being students, so there will be a lot of mathematics also discussion here. Some of them government people and professionals, so something to take away for SMEs, and so on and so forth. So now to my presentation. Next slide. Right, so as we have seen how powerful these things are, there's always the question of how long will they stay put, and are they going to stay here forever? Is it just a hype? And it is true, it's a hype. It's a big hype, yeah? Tomorrow you'll wake up and find that, oh, ChatGPT is not that good, okay? But you see, what this hype has done is that it has been able to now bring the business people, the executives, the government officials, to be able to play with something, right? Right now, students can look for assignments online, government people can, quickly prototype something, and they now understand how powerful AI is. And with that, for us practitioners, we are happy because initially, software developers and AI professionals spend time to just convince executives that, hey, we need this particular technology to be able to help us move forward. Now we don't have to spend so much time because they already understand from ChatGPT that, hey, there is technology, generative AI, that's going to help us. So how do we overcome the hype? How do we maintain the momentum? How do we move forward? As you can see, this is Gartner cycle of technology. And you can see at the top there we have the foundation models. That is the new name for generative AI. And it's at the top. It's almost at the peak where it's going to start now going down, right? And we should expect that either it's going to go down, or if research is good enough, it's going to stay at the plateau. Okay, so in terms of hype, yes, it's a big hype now, but there's a lot of positives that are coming. Next. Now I go into foundation models, which, as I told you, is the new name for large language models, generative AI. And by definition, foundation models are a set of technologies that are able to capture representations of data, be it text, be it images, or whatever it is. And because it learns from large amounts of data, it's able to transfer that information to other tasks. For example, here, you have things like information extraction, image captioning, object recognition, and so on and so forth. So GPT-3, which is the front face or the back end of what we call the ChatGPT, is a textual foundation model, and it can be used, for example, for chat. ChatGPT is one application of that. So then these foundation models help us to be able to capture this high amount of representations from huge data, and then we can adapt that into some given domain. That's a bit of background. This is where the students come in, or mathematicians come in. A bit of background to this. Initially, we were just counting words and understanding how they're related and so on and so forth. Then somebody thought of neural networks because of the power of computers and a mammoth amount of data that exists online and so on, to be able to understand text. And for students, you probably have understood things called long short-term memory networks, which is the brother that just preceded what I'm going to talk about. What LSTMs do is they try to understand, because text comes in a sequence, and the sequence can be so long, they try to represent all the sequence texts and be able to understand the whole context of data. And that's what LSTMs do. But somebody thought, if the text is so long, what will happen is that you will forget where you started, right? So how can we represent better so that we only understand the most important thing in the text, right? So if somebody is talking about University of Lagos and they have talked about how the Vice Chancellor was represented by the Deputy Vice Chancellor at the conference, and the only thing they want to do or to understand is University of Lagos, all the other texts become useless, right? So then researchers at Google thought that, why don't we come with an architecture that is able to understand only part of the text? In figurative language, we say paying attention, right? So you concentrate or pay attention to only part of the sequence that is most relevant. And that's the architecture by Vashwani et al. I don't want to go into the details because I feel that some people may be lost. But the idea is that the attention architecture is able to represent and capture and concentrate only on the parts of the sentence that are very vital. You can see there in the architecture it takes as input QKV, which is query, key, and value. And one of those is the target output, and the other one is the target input, and it tries to match that so that then part of the question or the query that is most important then is represented. Next. When Vashwani released this, again, these Google researchers are crazy because they have a lot of hardware and they're very rich and they can just experiment with so many things. Somebody again at Google thought, why don't we take this attention architecture and blow it up, right? So that is able now to capture what we are calling the foundations, right? Capture representations. And that's when BART came. Somebody called this attention heads, and let's be able to represent a huge amount of historical information into textual, into vector spaces. From there, researchers thought, okay, how can we go further, right? And there are two major objectives. Again, for mathematicians, there are two major objectives here. One of them is able to say, let me predict the next word given the previous words, what we call autoregressive, right? And the other one is saying, let me mask or hide or add some noise into the text so that then I'm able to unearth what was hidden when I did the masking. So that was called the auto encoding. So those two objectives, again, I've put reference for those who are interested in going deeper into that. Those two objectives have been powerful in what we have as LLMs or foundation models. Next. And finally now, away from the mathematics, now we finally get to GPT. So GPT is following those two objectives. Specifically for ChatGPT is following the second objective. And what they have done is to take all the text online and train something that is able to understand all that text, to mean that it's able to represent that text into vectors, okay? And then do calculation. If you can't get your input into mathematical numerical form, then you are not able to do anything. But the thing with GPT is that it grew so fast that the world was shocked, and it continues to grow. We now have GPT-4, and GPT-4 is no longer open, right? OpenAI calls themselves open, but GPT-4 is no longer open. So that's where we start wondering. So people are looking for ways to come up with open initiatives. My CEO, Arvind Krishna, yesterday announced that they have a consortium that is called, what is that called? AI Initiative something, that is going to now foster forward open initiatives for AI, because it's no longer open for some of us. But the point with OpenAI is that the models are very huge, and they're trained on such a large amount of data that they're able to capture very succinct information about what they have learned. Okay? So that's where we are now. And maybe if you go to the next slide. The next question is, how about images and vision, right? Because text and language is now highly well represented. So the next question is, can we have something for image or for computer vision? And there are models as well that have been going on. One of them called the GANs, Generative Adversarial Networks. But the greatest kid now on the block is what we call the diffusion models. The diffusion models, again, what they do is to take images, and I think students and probably even professionals, you have played with something called DALL-E online, where you generate images of people standing in the moon or somebody riding a horse or whatever it is. And that model is very powerful in that it's able to capture image representations and able to produce new images that are similar to what the image was doing. And again, I've written the objective for that. Again, for those who are interested, you could probably look out for that. But this is my space now. This is what I work with, to be able to capture molecules. You can imagine 3D molecule, 3D structure of molecules. You pass it into this diffusion model. What it does is that it adds noise until we have white noise, and then reverses the process. And when it reverses the process, it goes to the original space where the image was, and then draws new samples. Okay? Yeah, forget about that. Just move second. Move next. Yeah, so for example here, you can see the images on the left, just before the line, show you the samples that were input into the model, and what on the right is examples of samples that were drawn by the model after learning the structure of the image. And what does this portend for us? The researcher who is in the lab trying to come up with a new drug can give us the drug structure or some sample solution. Right, enough of the mathematics, right? So we have ascertained that these models are powerful, and they are huge, and they are large, and so on. But what are some of the limitations? The limitations I'm going to do are motivated by things from ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT a few questions about Africa and I saw the problem. And these are where there's a problem, we have an opportunity, right? So these are the opportunities for researchers and practitioners to be able to go and try to solve. So I asked ChatGPT last night, who is the first African to receive a Nobel Prize? ChatGPT, first of all, gave me a big answer, and I didn't include it here. It said Albert Schweitzer was the first African to receive a Nobel Prize. Then I was shocked because that name sounds German, right? And I was like, let me ask again. So I asked again ChatGPT, and now it apologized that, hey, sorry for my previous answer. It's actually somebody called Albert Luthuli, right? A South African. So this is a problem, because if you're going to trust ChatGPT and it tells you answers and apologizes later, that's a problem that is called hallucination, right? So it's giving you, it's not sure, but it's confidently giving you, right? If I didn't know Schweitzer sounds German, I would just have taken it as the answer, right? But it's not. Then I asked again the same question in a different format, right? First African to be a Nobel laureate. And now it goes back to Albert Schweitzer. So the fact that large language models take so much text, gives it so much information, sometimes the actual accurate answer to things is lost in that mix, okay? The next limitation will be that large language models so often are stuck in the past, right? Like GPT-3, what you call ChatGPT, is a 2022 last trained model. If they're to train it again, they will need resources, they will need all these kind of things. Nobody has that time, nobody has those resources, right? Well, OpenAI has resources, Google has resources, and so on. But, well, for us, we may want to think maybe we don't have those resources. So I asked ChatGPT, who is the governor of Rivers State in Nigeria, right? There's a state called Rivers State, right? Right. And it told me that according to its knowledge, which is true, in 2022, Nyesom Wike, right, was the governor. Yeah, is out, always updated. These things can give you answers because they understand a lot. They have been trained on such huge information. They'll give you an answer, but that answer they are not able to. If I asked, which is the large language model that was created in Africa, well, even me, I don't know. How can we move forward in that context? The other challenge with large language models has to do with cost considerations. These things are so large, they require such a huge amount of data, and they require such specialized hardware to be able to train. For example, GPT from OpenAI has 175 billion parameters. Now, if you know what parameters means in statistics, these are, how do I make it in a simple form? These are the elements of the model that actually retain the information, right? So that you are able to now predict or classify the next data point. That is very huge. It will take you months to train, will take you, even to curate it, will take you years sometimes. So the source of data, for example, OpenAI's GPT-3 was trained on, for example, open web, books, and so on. But they have hidden some information about proprietary data they used to train the extra mile. Google came up with some other model called the BARD, which has 137 billion, a bit smaller than GPT-3, but it's still big model. And they also claim to have trained on Common Crawl and some news and Wikipedia and so on, but there's always some hidden hand under the table that they use to extend it to be more powerful. The last model there is from Facebook, and Facebook, their model is completely open source. It's called Llama. I think I forgot to add it there. Sorry, apologies for this. Yeah, and the aim was to be able to reduce the number of requirements of parameters here, and their model is 7 billion, between 7 billion to 65 billion. What they were doing is to train several models incrementally until the point where they're able to match the others. And they claim that the 7 billion parameters model is able to, the 13 billion parameters model is able to match GPT-3. So if you're looking for some inspiration on working on this space, you might want to look at the llama models and be able to get insights. Next. Right, Google is even more beautiful. Gives even the image of the guy who found it. But it takes around 0.5 seconds. But now I want to introduce a talk about a third technology that is able to, next, in a much shorter time. And this technology is called knowledge graphs. Knowledge graphs are constructs that have been curated. Data has been represented in a graph format so that then you're able to query directly the data. Yeah? One of the common knowledge graphs that are open source are Wikidata. Was able to generate for me this query and give me so that then I can answer using Wikidata. I had to change a few things. But ChatGPT is able to hardware, like the most powerful hardware you'll ever think about, okay? And takes around hardware seconds. So what am I trying to say? Are large language models or foundation models wrong or bad to use? I didn't make such a claim. I said they're very powerful. And actually we should all think on how to use large language models. But the question is, if the mosquito is disturbing you and you use a hammer to hit it, you'll hit your head, right? So there are some situations when we don't really need large language models. And such situations are when we can quickly represent our data in some graph format or some tabular form or whatever it is, and be able to use some other form of AI, right? For example, not all scenarios is profitable for LLMs. The next thing is that sometimes it's too expensive to even build an LLM, right? And that is very common in our case. Sometimes we don't even have the data, we don't have the hardware, we're not funded, and so on and so forth. But even if you were able to train these large language models, why don't we combine the power of both knowledge graphs and large language models to be able to be more succinct and so on and so forth? For example, the provenance problem. You can quickly go and verify in the knowledge graph the source of that. Now, this is some work I did in 2021. And at that time, large language models were still not as fancy as they are now. But looking into the future, and then you transfer. So this is the transfer process. I fetched a lot of information from the knowledge graph, which is Wikidata, and was able to beat the then current model, which was BART, by around 4 points. So moving forward now, people are slowly starting to realize that there is power in adding this contextual information to these large language models for more powerful performance. Some other considerations are expressivity. How can we make it more expressive? How can we make it more explainable? How can we make it more provenance, and so on and so forth. Right, so we want to enhance large language models, but how do we enhance them? So what we have now is GPT, very powerful model, does everything, but it's not factually correct, it's not updatable, and cannot tell us where it got its data from. Combining these two technologies, and knowledge graph can be anything, can be any other knowledge base. So if you curate in your organization your own knowledge, and then support your large language model with your own knowledge, then you're starting to get to this space. Don't worry, I'm almost done. I know. Yeah. So some emerging fields in this area are things like retrieval augmented generation, what we call RAGs. If you want, you're a researcher, you're looking at where to look into, this is where you want to look into. The idea is retrieval means you have some knowledge base somewhere and you're trying to retrieve some information. And that can be used, what I've just explained, like knowledge graphs. How can you fine tune with task specific? For example, in Nigerian context, I don't know you have some cultural task you want to do. How can you add that task-specific information and so on? Just yesterday, Andrew NG, who is a researcher in this area, and a respected researcher in this area from Stanford, was talking about large vision models. So how can we have large vision models? But images are different from text, right? Because text, what you find in Wikipedia might have an idea of Legos and local context. But images are different. An image of a cat is just for a cat, it's not for a dog. So the idea is that for large vision models, you really have to have contextual information that applies to your context, right? Like you can't use images for cats to be able to analyze scanned images for healthcare or something like this. Next. Right, so where do we come in? As I always say, data is the king in all these things. And Africa, we are lagging behind in terms of curated data. And I'm thinking that these startups, SMEs, and organizations in general generate data every day, and they let it just pass. Just lie there. If only all of us can start being more, there's a term that somebody told me recently, intentional with data, right? So that every time there's new data in your organization about employees, about your product and so on, you're structuring that data, curating that data, and getting ready to train some model with your data. Then I think we will start getting forward. But the trick is that LLMs and FMs can help you also generate data. Like I said, for example, the diffusion model can help you learn the space in which your data is and be able to generate for you new samples of data. So why can't we combine those two, manual and automatic sampling of that data into whatever space you are in? So in conclusion, therefore, we as Africans, we must start teaching foundation models the African context. Because without that, we will just be marveling at what people are doing, but we can't apply them in our area. For example, in judicial system, I'm very sure that the Nigerian judicial system might be automated, but the historical cases that have gone through previously may not be understood by any model. How can we make that some language model to understand that kind of context? So collect data, reuse these models, because I understand there's cost considerations and so on, and Google is just too rich. They come up with big things. But we can reuse what they have built to be able to improve our scenarios. Train on contextual data and consider augmenting these language models. That was all I had to say. Okay, all the best.
All right, thank you. So let me crave our indulgence. Can we give him a warmer round of applause? Let me call to this side of the hall the chair of this session, Dr. Ebo Fashino. Please come, sir, because you will give some summary of what he has told us. Please keep clapping until he gets here. That other side is better.
Nice meeting you, sir. Dr. Fashion.
Permit me to ask, sir, are you a politician? Or I don't understand. The applause was a lot. Can we do better for that? Thank you very much. And so I will yield the podium for Dr. Fashino to summarize what we have heard from the keynote speaker. Please, sir, come to the podium.
Yes. Thank you very much, ma'am. So, good morning, everybody. I can see a lot of my students here. So, I am going to make this summary a bit interactive. And I'm going to make it interactive because all the things Dr. Onando talked here are really very esoteric. This is the stuff of PhDs and advanced research. But I want to bring it to everybody's level. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to interest you in these things and to show you that they are not as complicated as they appear. And that's supposed to be an encouragement for you, right? Because it's all these equations and all those things and the things. So Dr. Onando has talked about large language models. What these things are, they are basically neural networks, but very deep neural networks. And they are trained to have some ability to retain knowledge in what you call all those billions you are seeing, parameters. That is where they store the knowledge. But the problem with them, which he also mentioned, is that they are static. So if it goes over the web, gathers information, and it trains, it puts all these things into weights, it is what he has seen up to that point that he trained and put into weights. So those are large language models. And he talked about their limitations. He talked about hallucination. That is the fact that they say things that don't even exist. They're not factual. When he talked about the fact that they can't say this is where I pick my information from, because those things are what? They're not part of the training. And those things, you know, the training is static. So, and he mentioned the talking, I missed that. Updatability, in other words, if something is current, they cannot give information about that. Then he went from there and he went into knowledge graphs, which that is another aspect of AI, which these things map knowledge. They build knowledge into topological maps, am I correct? Yeah. Of all. And those things represent knowledge as topological maps. So these are language models. Then he says, look, the future is how do we marry these two things? How do we marry pre-trained models, which are large language models, with knowledge models, right? Am I? Good. Knowledge graphs. So how do we marry these two things? Because then how do we marry this? This is an area of research, but I want to have participation so that in the next 2 minutes, we will be able to figure out how can we really marry these two things together. Now, I want to say, first of all, when we started with the web, we had what we call queries. You run your query and the web comes with them, they call them search engines, and they tell you, oh, this is where you can get information from, right? Then we went from that, went to the semantic web. And the semantic web says, you do a query, and looks at the query, extracts meaning from the query, and comes up with responses. Now, we have these large language models. They're static. Now, the difference between them and your web is because your web is ever growing, and when you run your semantic web is going through the entire web, and it pulls information. Now, so what do you think will solve this problem of large language models? Where do you think the solution is going to come from? Anybody? Anybody? The question, how do you solve this problem that large language models have? How do you solve it? How do you think we can solve it? I just can we reason it out just in 1 or 2 minutes? Can we figure it out? Yes?
I'm having a thought on what you say static.
Yes.
When you say static, are you saying that what is happening on that section, when it's searching is dynamic, except you're saying...
No, he has been trained,
Yes.
and therefore it's static.
Yeah.
He has been trained, so he can't continue things. It's what he knows.
Yeah, so
up
it's
to the
just
point of training. Yes.
It's just updating that we can say, yes.
Updating is the problem now. Now, if you want to update it, you have to retrain it again.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what makes it static, because
Yeah.
when it's searching, it's actually doing something, and that's
It's doing
making
something for
dynamic in the sense that it's moving and searching.
Yeah, he's searching
Yeah.
for what he knows. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think? How do you think this problem can be solved? Anybody here? That is the next generation ChatGPT. In other words, something that is not static. How do you think it can be solved? Any ideas? Yes?
Sir?
Yes? Any ideas? Yeah?
Do I just so?
You know, it's static, so it can't learn unless you train it every time. Any other? Yes?
Yeah, I want to make a suggestion.
Yeah?
So I think that since we have a problem with resources, if it's actually possible to build the hardwares and other components that the LLMs depend upon, if we can actually make that really cost effective. So I think if we can look into the components that the hardware requires and we can reduce the cost, I think that can really go a long way.
Is it really a hardware problem?
But we talked about cost and it's been really expensive.
No, yeah, the cost aspect, the training takes a lot of power, then it requires a lot of memory, it's very expensive. But is it really a hardware problem? It's not really. What is it about? Yes? So what do we need to marry together to actually solve this problem? I just want us to think about it, because when you think about it, you understand the problem more. And you can even start looking at it now from your undergraduate and masters and PhD. Yes?
Yeah,
Any
thank you,
ideas?
sir.
Yes?
We're just deliberating here now.
Yes. Just deliberating, yes. Just suggestions.
And we are saying that the system need to be able to recognize when there is an update.
Yes.
And that can be done when the system is adaptive.
Yes.
When it's adaptive,
Yes.
we notice any changes that happens in this domain and be able to update itself automatically.
Yes.
If it does that, then the issue of observability, that will be solved. Now is how do we come up with some models and like that will make it adaptive, so sensitive to its environment at every point in time. And
In other words, we'll be constantly intelligent.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the adaptivity.
No, it's always adapting and it's learning.
Yes,
all the time, yeah.
as any changes that comes,
Yes,
it adapt to it.
Exactly.
I think that should be the solution
That's definitely the solution. But how will it come? Any ideas? Yes?
All right, good morning, everyone. Now, one of the things I actually have in mind is that how about we come about decentralization?
Yeah.
Then to every, just like University of Lagos right here, and we have, let me say, a location.
So how will that decentralization come?
Yeah, it can come in, just like in the university here.
Yes.
Then we have a research
He
center.
mentioned something like that when he talked about curation, right? Something like curation.
Curation, yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned something like everybody curates their own data, you understand? Yes,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yes, curation, yes. That's going towards it, yes. So how do you think we'll finally solve that problem?
Yeah, there should be a
Yes.
current update.
Yes, curation will give current update, yes, but how do we link it together? Yes.
Okay.
Can we try using the decentralized machine learning, the idea behind federated learning?
Yes.
Whereby
Federated learning, yes.
Yes.
But what we actually need a data structure that will allow us to learn. And I think we just round it up here. So the suggestion, one suggestion is that why can't we have an intelligent web where with the hyperlinks to data, we also have a knowledge graph. So as we're building our internet, we're also building an intelligent internet. We merge knowledge graphs with the internet. So when you run your query, it dynamically extracts intelligence and it gives you the correct up-to-date answer. Thank you very much.
All right, I think our first keynote speaker deserves a bigger round of applause, and the chair of this session. We thank you. So also come to the podium, Dr. Bayo Adekombi, for the second keynote speech. Dr. Bayo Adekombi, please. Are you here, sir? Is he around? Data Scientist Network? Dr. Bayo Adekombi.
That is all. We are so to break after this.
Please come, just come straight away. Come straight down. All right, let's clap until he gets here. And the topic of his speech is generative innovation for MSMEs. Please come straight to the podium so that you can take your slots now. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Standing on existing protocol, it's a great pleasure to join you today for this very esteemed conference. And I want to commend the organizer. This is the third edition. I think we need to give the organizers a round of applause. And I'm talking about the Machine Intelligence Research Group of the University of Lagos. This is a great milestone, and having been part of the great work happening for University of Lagos, and the success stories that I know of so many researchers out of University of Lagos who are raising the bar of this country everywhere I go across the world, I can see more champions being raised here. And I'm not just saying students, I'm saying great innovators that will change the world. I think you deserve a round of applause. And mind you, I am not hyping you. I'm not hyping you, and I can be very practical. 5 years ago, 2 of your students joined us through Dr. Odumuyiwa, joined us at our hub, which used to be at University of Lagos. Today, just about a month ago, the 2 gentlemen are big boys with Google in London. They're doing great. And there's hardly any country I've gone to that I don't see University of Lagos researchers, driving great impact, whether Meta, even IBM, everywhere in the world. So Unilag, kudos to you guys. Now, my point this morning, or this afternoon, I'm not sure the time now, this morning, is to inspire you to create more solutions, to build more, and solve more problems out there. And that's why I represent the industry. We had worked for 22 years, working for the 2 largest telcos in Africa, and now leading an AI startup. There's a need for a lot of us, while we do a lot of research, to start thinking like great universities like Stanford, IBM Africa, and several of them, which is about your research to solve problems. Not just research to have a nice paper that may end up being used to sell Google and Apple on the street. We don't want to do that. We want to build great research that can become a company. We want to build great research that you can use to come build big robotic lab for this university in the next 10 years. And we need to stimulate you to think that way. And that's what Machine Intelligence Research Group has been doing. I've been working with the likes of Dr. Banjo and several others. The motivation is get you guys to start thinking how to apply theory into practice. So, if you can have my slide up, or it's still coming up. Okay, good. So while we're waiting for the slide to come up, I don't know how long that will take. Do you want to give me an idea so that? Okay, a minute. Okay, good. So why are we interested in MSMEs? MSMEs are small, medium enterprises. They are the little shops you see on the street, which ordinarily you may think they do not need AI. Even though in their own non-traditional way, they use AI. And you may not know that. Let me pick a story of Mama Put. How many of you know who we call Mama Put here? And all of you are sophisticated. But you know Mama Put. Why does Mama Put know that silent people must never be given credit? That Mr. Tayo, I can give him credit. But Mr. Phillips, I must not give him credit. She knows that if I want to give credit, the best time to give credit is from on the 27th to on the 3rd of the next month. How does she know that? Which architecture is he using? Which knowledge is he using? She understands that that's the time when salary is paid. And when you give them, stuff around that time, there's a very high probability that they will pay you back. But if you mistakenly give it to them on the 10th, on the 15th, Like all of you students, you know when you are dry. And you know when you come back from home, in the early weeks, you are so super rich. Okay, good. So let's go straight to the slide. Our doctor has done a fantastic work on. Just use some images. Then I'm going to look at some applications for MSMEs. And then I'll look at some of the work we are doing at DSN AI, a work that just recently won Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Global Grand Challenge, which is on using large language model for financial inclusion. And the reason is to stimulate you that great stuff are happening as far as large language models are concerned in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Yeah. Next slide. So why are we interested in MSME? Why we are not professors of business entrepreneurship, like my Augustus Bank data shows that we have about 40 million of them in Nigeria, and they employ about 80% of Nigerians, and they contribute as much as half of the total gross domestic product of Nigeria. So this is an important segment to be interested in, and that's why I'm so excited about the focus of this conference. How do we intentionally build for these people? They are not your MTNs, they are not your Access Bank, but they are very critical to economy. They are the pharmacy shops by your roadside, the mama put, the woman who sells a cloth on Instagram and deploy basic logistics to deliver, or the woman who runs a catering shop, or the cake maker. They may be small, but we need to start thinking of how to build for them so that we can improve their productivity, because improving their productivity will help them to train their children, it will help them to live a better life, and in doing that, we multiply shared prosperity. And that is why I'm so excited about the focus of this conference. I know many of us would like to build for big companies. I want to build for large corporates. But this is a segment that perhaps, when you look at the possibilities of generative AI, as well captured by our first no speaker, you can see that there's a lot that can be done. Next slide. Now, let's move to the next slide, because I don't want to talk about some of the things you have spoken about already. Now, the whole concept of generative AI is all about patterns. It's all about what? Patterns. And that is the pattern that a farmer uses to know when its runs are repeatable. And because they are repeatable, they are predictable. Are we together? Because they are predictable, you can productize them to solve future problems, because you have learned from the past. So because you have learned the pattern from the past, you can use that representation that you have learned in another context, which has been beautifully explained by our first keynote speaker. I think it deserves another round of applause, guys. Very nice. But behind these flowers are patterns. Let's go through journey of patterns. Next slide, guys. Do you know that behind this small thing that you're saying is this simple logic? And this simple logic is a pattern. And within this pattern, there is a mathematics behind it. Next slide. Who can tell me the mathematics behind this pattern? Fibonacci, please, can you give yourself a round of applause? It is like your AP. I'm sure you know arithmetic progression. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And it's like your geometric. 2, 4. What's next now, guys? No, that's arithmetic. Geometric. 2, 4, 8. Hey, please give yourself a round of applause. Now, from that simple flower, some people, and this was 1202, that's about over 1,000 years ago, that somebody saw a pattern in the flower, that there is a sequence of pattern. And what is the pattern? And the pattern is the fact that of this number that forms the logic and the pattern of that flower. So if I understand patterns, I can repeat, I can predict, I can productize. Do you get the principle? If I understand the pattern, I can repeat the pattern, I can predict the pattern, and most importantly, I can product. All about Fibonacci, which is just a common natural occurrence that scientists took time to study. And in studying it, they found the pattern, that there is a mathematics behind numbering arrangement, which may not be obvious to our traditional eyes. Are we together, guys? Next slide. And that is the whole theory of Fibonacci. Next slide. The summary of what I've shared with you is a summary of how we build product using logic of repeatability, the generative understanding of if I understand the representation that exists before, I can apply to do something that has never been done before. And that's what generative AI does. It learns from several conversations we've all made, which are all available on social media, on online, and it uses it to create something new. For example, you can ask ChatGPT to give you a poem on love. Interestingly, somebody used it to develop, due respect to people of all religion here, to develop a Christian message. And it was so rich that it was far better than what a pastor could have put together. What did he use? He used previous patterns. And what is a pattern? You quote, you reference, you emphasize, you repeat. Because those patterns have been established. It only can repeat it. If I can repeat it, I can predict it. How many of us, like I said, we do respect to people of all religion, that when your pastor is preaching, you almost know what he will say next? Is there anybody like that here? Please wait, I want to be sure I'm communicating. Why? Because you know that there are certain I want to be sure I'm communicating. Why? Because you know that there are certain mannerisms, certain logic, certain patterns, just like that sunflower. And that's what generative AI does for us. It looks at several information in books, in lyrics of songs, in poems, in everything that is documented, whether in Tyson. And that's all generative AI is all about. It's the fact that I understand the representation of the data within this context. And with the transformer architecture, which has been well explained, on the principle of attention is all you need. I know what I should put attention on. And because I know what I should put attention on, I know the core of my productization on a repeatable sequence logic. And that is why this image you have seen helps us to capture it when it comes to productization. If I have a data, all I'm looking for there is the patterns. What are the patterns? If I'm writing a poem on love, there are certain patterns. There will be certain rhymes, is going and donging, you know what I'm talking about. They are patterns. Who are the poets in the room? Who are guys who write great poems? You know the logic. You want the words to rhyme. So because you can learn those rhyming, and there are enough documents online that helps you to know words that rhyme together. Or you don't know that there are rhyme zones online. If you want to use words that sounds, alike, you know what I'm talking about? There are a lot of things that treasure, pleasure, you know what I'm talking about, measure. There are tools online that can allow you to organize things that sound together. Those are the patterns that a generative AI will look for, and because it has learned the pattern, it will build a model. But this model in this case is called large language model or foundation model. Why? Because it has learned from a large repository with very high parameters, just as has been well captured. So because this model has the knowledge of the patterns of what comes first and what comes next, how things are arranged, if you give it a new task, it's able to generate something different for you. It will give you a new poem that nobody has written before. It will give you a letter that nobody has written before. It can even write for you a book that nobody has written before. How does it do that? It learns from what other people have done to understand the patterns. And because those patterns are repeated in many instances, they can be predicted. And because they can be predicted, they can be what? Productized. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? So without understanding, let's move to the next slide. So because of the power of AI, generative AI, to give us new stuff based on the learning from the previous stuff, it can be applied in different scenarios. These are just examples of how it can be used. It can be used for video generation. How does that mean? It has studied enough video to see how a boy greets in the morning, how people run, and if I label those information It knows what running means. It knows what sitting means. So I can tell that system, create for me a video of a boy jumping in a class and waving at the same time. Those things follow a pattern. It could go into its repository of information and start pulling videos that show like that and create something similar to that. And that is how powerful generative artificial intelligence is. It's such an amazing tool that has made the world, it's so good that we're all afraid of what it can do. Because what it means is that I can take the voice and the mannerism and the patterns of Dr. Dumuyiwa and get somebody else to talk, and I can use the knowledge of the presentation in his voice, I can overlay it, and everybody will think that it's Dr. Dumuyiwa that is talking, and it's not the one talking. We call it deepfake. And that is the power of what these can do or mean to us. Next slide. So I'm going to move quickly into the whole broad concept of large language, which has been explained. So I'll just do what I call basic. We want elementary. And I'm sure you all know what we're talking about. You want to type something to your friend. And as you're typing, how are you today comes out. Am I right? Because he knows that based on several things you have typed in the past, most of the time, what you say is not consonants follow a probability. Because it's not all the time. For example, how are you dash? What are the likely words that can come? Let's test ourselves. How are you? What is the next word that is likely going to come? Next slide. How are you doing? That's one. How are you feeling? That's two. Number three. How are you? Somebody said right now. Okay. What happened is that all of those things, as we call them output token, there is possibilities of what is likely going to be next one, and there are probability. And that's no, national speaker, deceive you. Don't let them deceive you, because I have seen motivational speaker, in 3 months, an AI expert will emerge. Where your statistics is what you left in secondary school, you have not even touched it. Those fundamentals are not there. But you can see that there's a probability. What will come next? And that is what it follows. So understanding your probability theories and all that becomes very important. And all of these are automated. Next slide. Next slide. And because of those knowledge, like I said, is able to generate just anything. And one of those examples is what I have here, where we tell the system, create an image that contains an astronaut floating in space with Earth behind him. Now, what does it do? It picks each of these texts, and then it goes look for all the representations it has learned, the most dominant representation. It's a game of probability. That whenever the word astronaut is mentioned, what are the features? What are the dominant features? There are certain things that must be there. There must be a difference between an astronaut and a pilot, a doctor and an engineer. There are certain physical features that I'm sure when many of us were in primary school, we know those features that differentiate a doctor. I don't know how many of you did career day in primary school. When they ask you, dress in the career you want to become. For everybody, nobody needs to tell us. As those kids were coming, this one wants to be a doctor. This one wants to be a lawyer. You see the link immediately. Those are features. And those are the things it's looking out for based on several representations it has learned from several data. So it's able to pick, this is how a lawyer. So show me a lawyer giving a speech to many students. A lawyer, so what are the features that defines a lawyer? Is it height? Is it shape? Is it what the lawyer is wearing? Is it the color of the wig itself? Because it cannot be black. How many of you have seen black wig? How many of you have seen it? So it uses those information to bring that image alive. I hope you are following the logic. Is it very clear to you guys? Next slide. One thing that is very powerful about generative AI is the ability to create things that ordinarily you and I may not have thought about. And one of those is the avocado innovations. Great for me, an armchair in the shape of an avocado. Normally, as a person, we would not have thought about that. We would not have thought about that. Create for me a snail that looks like avocado. They're very imaginative construct that ordinarily we don't think about. We don't engage in them based on the limitedness of our mind. But if you do this, imagine this beautiful creation. So if there's an SME, a furniture maker, based in Akoka or based in Bariga, who is looking for how to differentiate himself, tell him to go and use this kind of solution, create furniture that looks like a monkey. Who knows? It's going to give you possible ideas that we have not thought about. Create a bus that looks like a canoe. And you'll be shocked at the visualization that will come, because it's going to look for all the possible data representations that are similar to what you're looking for, and it will create something that challenges your imagination. And that's why generative AI is such a big deal that we need to be very excited about. Next slide. Look at a lamp in the shape of an avocado, a lamp imitating an avocado. This is an amazing stuff that an SME can think about that does not exist before, because there's a solution that can allow us to learn representation and visualize them in an amazing way. Next slide. These are beautiful when it comes to design, architecture, and all those kind of things. How should a house look like? The reason why this works, just one of the examples that first keynote speaker spoke about. When it comes to drug synthesis, this thing is being used heavily. How many of you are in pharmacy here? How many of you are in pharmacy? Pharmacy? Please encourage pharmacy students to come learn computational science, please. Please encourage them. Dr. Dumura, please encourage pharmacy student, medical student, agric student, even accounting student, even though they won't claim that they become an expert, but we need their domain knowledge. It's very, very important. Because in cases like this, you are able to use the fundamental of sequencing in diverse contexts. Particularly, I want to do design. Give me a house, give me a building that this looks like this, that looks like that, and it gives you some wow ideas. We're actually doing a project in my office where we're looking at all the wowness, wowness of generative AI. It's one of the papers we're presenting, very soon. Because it can just give you things that ordinarily an average professional may not have thought about. So if it can work for visual, why would it not work for drug synthesis? Why would it not work for drug discovery? So if you know people doing computational biology, bioinformatics, this is the next frontiers of how they are using the power of generative AI to create things that ordinarily we don't think about. Next slide. So, having established the fundamentals, we move into applications. What are some of the examples of how this concept of patterns that can be repeated, are we together, that can be predictable and that can be productized, be used to build product for small businesses, for mama put, pharmacy, logistics, a guy who runs fashion centers, a guy who runs business online. How can we use this knowledge to support them? Now, next slide. I want to go into real stuff very quickly. These are diverse examples, but you are not seeing them. So let me move to more specific example. More specific, next slide. I want to go. Now, I'm going to go to SAR AI in India, being applied by Amazon. How many of us know Amazon? You guys are, you are Unilag students. You are not somebody from one university in far from the city. You are in the center of the city. Am I wrong? Am I right? Excite yourself now. You are Unilag student now. You are Cockites. You are in the city. You know what is happening. You know Amazon. Now, sorry about that. It's a global e-commerce company. But in its growth, process of setting up business on Amazon can be very complex. I have 2 books on Amazon, and it took me a lot. Which image should I use? How should I arrange it? What should I write? You have to find a lot of things to do. So what Amazon is doing with this program in India called Sahai, which is help or support, is that you don't need to bother yourself. In your local language, just tell me what your product is all about. It will translate, it will write for you your product description, and of course it will use the right superlatives. In addition to that, you need to generate the image of the product you want to sell. This platform also helps you to generate that image. Imagine what this will mean to several of our small businesses who want to get into Jumia. How many of you have sold on Jumia before? I sold a book on Jumia, and I know how complex it can be. Things they will ask you to write, that you need to go and get an expert to write it. Now, what Amazon has simplified is you don't need to bother yourself. Just say it in your local language. It will give you all the documentation you need to set up your business on Amazon in India. So what does that mean? More businesses can be on Amazon. More families can make extra money. More people can get more products that they need easily. And what does that mean? Economic multiplier effect. And that is how great economies are built. When there is a lot of economic activities happening, because there are a lot of enablement or ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is what generative AI makes possible in this particular case study. Are we together, guys? So, if you look at it, it will help you to generate content, the image, your product details. Just tell me what your product is. Is water that I want to sell. I don't know whether they sell water on Amazon. I'm just using that as an example. Then it's going to write the right superlatives for you. You know, crystal clear. You know, ocean tasting. You know those nice words you're going to use. Generative AI is very creative. It will look for the best one that maybe somebody has never used before. Next slide. Now, this one excites me, Pesado. Pesado is a company I worked with many years ago when I was a chief analytics officer for MTN, the largest telco in Nigeria. I started the project then when I was sending personalized messages to people. Personalized messages are telling you that, oh, buy these bundles of data at lower price, and the message that goes to your friend is different from yours, because we have studied the best time you respond to message, the kind of language that tickles your fancy, so that when we send messages, it's not just general message. Buy 10 gigabytes of data for 1,000. We don't do that. We look at you. You know, what is the best words, you know, that can excite you? Big boys are always online, never be offline. 1 gig for 1,000 naira. Go now. Yes, I'm a big boy. Big boy, I never out of data. I click, you buy it. But if I've told you 1,000 naira for 1 gig, that's too expensive, I won't buy. But we started learning language. What is the best way? It's a big company, Pesado. So they moved from working for large companies like MTN, where I used them 2014, 2015, I used them because we brought them to Nigeria to work for us. Now, they are using the same thing they call Pesado motivation to start helping small businesses to write better content on Instagram, GG, and all those platforms where people buy stuff. Pesado knows exactly what is the best word to excite you. You are buying something and it's telling you that, you know, only 2 is remaining, click now. Only 2 remaining, click now. How do you feel? You are excited, you want to do something. So they learn based on how you use the internet, words that excite you, to give you the best words. They call it dynamic motivation. And the truth is that motivation also changes with time. Are we together, guys? I'll tell you one secret that I did working with students. We launched a program called Extra Cool. I don't know how many of you know Extra Cool here. I'm a very proud MTN. I used to work there, so I'm very proud of that business, even though I work for Airtel as well. But I'm quite yellow in my blood and also red as well. We launched a program called Extra Cool. Extra Cool, I don't know how many of you knew Extra Cool. It allowed people to call all night. If you know Extra Cool, just feel cool by waving your hands. Good, good, good. Now, we started observing spend patterns among students. Students buy our data, spend more on airtime only when they resume. By the time it's getting the 2nd, 3rd, 4th month, revenue goes down. So how do we get them to start giving us the money we need when they get to school? So we build a database of all the resumption dates of all the schools in Nigeria. Are we together? When do you guys resume schools? So we know when you guys resume. So we know Unilag is resuming 7th of December. So we look for all our base stations that are in that area. So the people that will get the message are only people within that base station, because we know where you are going to be. And we know where you also live based on the base station of your previous destination. So we know when there's a change Of course, those who come from their home, it might be very difficult to identify. But those who come from far places, you are coming from Ajah, you are coming from Abeokuta, Ijebu-Ode to school, we can easily identify these are travelers. So you get a message. We know you use 10 gigabytes of data for 1,000. So why not sell you 50 gigabytes of data for the price of 100 gigabytes of data? And that is the money I need from you for 4 months. Are we together, guys? Then I get all I need from you for 4 months at one deal, and I don't need to bother what happens to you second, third, or fourth month. Are we together, guys? Are we together, guys? Do you understand the principle? I'm just explaining the principle to you. And that's the principle that Pasado uses. What is the best thing to say per time? And it does that by learning patterns, basically. And because you can learn patterns, and those patterns are repeatable, because they are repeatable, they can be predicted, and anything you can predict, you can productize. Next slide, guys. Is a proof that it has worked, and that is a statement from their global director showing that it performs what they write and how they write does better than humans 96% of the time. So a small business does not need to set up a marketing department. They can just buy into products like this, and it generates all they need to generate the right contents for themselves. Next slide. These are other examples of personalization and customization. I have 1,000 customers. It is holiday time. I need to send messages to them. It can personalize the message that is done. There's actually a tool today that can generate text to video that is personalized. So what does that mean? You are writing a message to buyer. So it's as if the CEO of a company is greeting 1 million customers and is calling them by name. Dear Timothy, dear Femi, and it's coming as a video. Is that not exciting? Is that not exciting? Conosian does that and several other solutions. They use the same principle. It will record the standard video and then it will have variable indicators. So it will generate 1,000 video for 1,000 customers such that you get a message sent to you, and the CEO of a bank, imagine it's Christmas time, and the CEO of a popular bank sends you a message via WhatsApp. Dr. Inka, Doctor, how will you feel about that? It's going to be great. You will think it's me alone. Or to your friends, I also got the same. But at least that moment won't feel good about ourselves. This man tried, he recorded for all of us, one by one. And those are possibilities. Next slide, guys. Finance as well, studying patterns from finance and all of that. Next, as I start wrapping up, image generation, particularly for those who sell on Instagram. How do you generate images without having to employ a photographer? This is very, very important for small businesses. Next, it's also follow the same principle of generative AI. Next slide. This is Remini, by the way. Next slide. As we begin, Stereo AI generate art designs for you. Next slide. Next slide. Because of time, I'm very, very curious, careful of time. Now, based on statistics, there are indications that SMEs or small businesses are excited about what generative AI can do for them. 57% of them are interested, and as much as 75% consider it to be helping their businesses to do better. But this is limited to US and European market, and it was done by GoDaddy. Nobody has done anything for Nigerian market, and perhaps that is why I'm here, to inspire you that it's time to start building for small businesses. Because little small money has a way of building the economy. And I think University of Lagos, based on what I know, is committed to creating products that increase the prosperity of everyone, irrespective of socioeconomic class. Next slide. So this is the slide from GoDaddy. Next slide. It is time to start building. I'm just going to talk quickly about our product from DSNAI that just won the Global Grand Challenge for Gates Foundation, top 50 in the world out of over 13,000. And it's about a product we call FinChat. FinChat is a voice-based chatbot on financial inclusion. So, the person changing the slide, if you can just move to next slide, next. You can just bring this out and I will stop here because of time. We can just stop here. No, there's some slide that will come. Just bring everything, then I'll talk to it. Bring everything, I'll talk to it. Good. Now, I'm a mama put. I have a lot. I cannot write. I sold 10 bags of rice. I sold 2 bags of yams. My son came. I gave him 15 hours to buy puff. They all stay in their head, but oftentimes they forget them. But can they vocalize them? Because we observe that in the low voice notes. You learn from those voice notes. You are big boys, so you guys talk. But in the low income, they voice note a lot. You know, the voice note, they just see everything in a voice note. We can learn patterns from those voice notes. We can get the representation. What are the key financial terminologies? So if I'm able to learn and I'm able to build a database of all the possible ways low-income people spend money, I can analyze their expenses, build for them a voice-based financial accounting system that tells them at the end of the day that, Mama Tayo, do you know that you have spent 2,855 naira today? Are we together? Or you have spent 7,855 based on the level of information you have provided and speaking in Yoruba language for that matter. We hope to scale it because we have a whole lab somewhere in Lekki where we're building massive Yoruba audio voice and we're training and learning from it so that we can begin to build things that work for everyday people. We're currently testing it with several people also giving us feedback. But what does it do exactly? It helps do basic accounting based on what you say. 2 bags of yams for 20 naira. It develops a table for you based on that. I spent 25 naira for transportation. And of course, if you come and say that, I spent 2 figo to move from home. What is 2 figo? Figo on the street, if you don't know it, then you don't know the streets. Then you cannot build AI product for real people. So what we did was to go sit with real people and use their language. What do they use? How do they call money? Money has over 72 different ways of expression. Different money from 50 naira to 100 naira, they have different names they call them. So that when they use those terminologies, we're still able to recognize that this person is talking about this. So based on that, we're able to build a financial accounting system for them. And if they are also willing, it can also provide an advisory service. And what is the advisory service? You are spending more than you are earning. You need to watch yourself. Are we together, guys? And when you want to go for a loan, it also advises you on what loan you should go for and what loan you should not go for. They don't know it. Through this platform, it advises them on the best loan to go for. And it's vocalized back at them also in Yoruba language. So we presented it and you can check, and it's gaining a lot of traction. And we
and he finished it with FinChat, I think. Yes. Which, of course, answered the question I was going to ask him. And that question is, look, all these generative AI and all these things, how do they impact on MSMEs? And FinChat is doing something that is very innovative. They are looking at, they are not even interested. Because I'm a lecturer, I can't go on and questions. And what he said is, you are going to work with him, give me questions. And can you mention, then what's the third one? What? Yes, people that sell suya. So, okay. Now, let's take the people that sell suya. Let's take suya. Now, you've heard of ChatGPT. You've heard of language processing, taking language and processing. Now, can we, in 2 minutes, before we call the next speaker, figure out how can we develop an app for suya people? I just want one or two. And of course, we are going to tie it to some of the things he has said. He has said that, look, these guys don't have time for writing things down. They work normally with voice, and you want to do something that can help them and assist them. Let me give an idea of how I use, let me tell you how I used this BARD by Google. You know, you mentioned BARD by Google. I used it this morning. Do you want to know how? Yes. I wanted to dress up. I had my jacket. I had 2 options or 3 options of shirts. Then I had so many ties. So I went to Google and said, look, how do I use my tie? And he gave me an answer. So the general rule is that your tie should be darker than your shirt. Look at it. And he now said that your jacket should be darker than your tie. Look at it. So, and that's just a simple example of how I used BAD from Google this morning. So how will somebody selling suya? Please, I just want 2, 3, or 4 contributions on how to build an application for somebody selling suya. Please, 1, 2, 3 suggestions. Yes, gentlemen. When it sells. Thank you very much. Clap for him. Any other? Any other? That is knowing your customers, right? So that application is about knowing your customers. So you want to know how many people are buying suya. What else? What if you want to do an app for a suya? Yes.
Okay, I think.
So any ideas?
For them to be able to get data to use for their business when it comes to managing their business. For instance, let's say they want to use recipes, cook stuff, you know, all the things they do to get that data.
Source things for their business and so on. So this is the kind of thing you want to do if you want to build an application for suya sellers. A round of applause. And let us give Dr. Akim Adekombi another round of applause, please. So we'd like to call on to the next speaker, the CEO of Min1, Mrs. Funke Opeke. She's going to talk on for AI and blockchain deployment for MSMEs in Africa. Please give me a round of applause. You are representing, okay. So he is representing Mrs. Opeke. Give him another round of applause. He's going to introduce himself. And thank you very much. Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, guys. I hope our attention is still here. All right. Awesome. So my name is Ayoda Mokwe-Malade. Let me take this off. I work as a product analyst at MIRG, so I'm representing her here today. All right. So this is quite a nostalgic and honorable moment for me because I'm a product of, thank you guys, and driving through the gate all the way down here, not much has changed, but a lot has changed. I realize that you guys have an anthem now. We didn't have an anthem in front up. Talking about the roadmap towards infrastructure readiness for AI and blockchain. As you can see, there's no doctor or professor in my name. I'm just a product analyst, and I'll try my best to keep to time because I know that we've been here for quite a bit. And if you feel like we're losing attention for a minute, just hit me up and I'll come back on point, right? All right, so let's go quickly to the next slide. All right, so just a few statistics. According to Gartner, by 2026, the business value of blockchain and AI would increase to over $360 billion. And by 2030, that would be about $3.1 trillion. I'm going to try my best not to go into the applications of AI and applications of blockchain, although I'm passionate about it, and I know a lot of us here are passionate about it. But I know that our previous speakers have already spoken about the applications, they've spoken about the framework. What I'm primarily focused on talking about is we already have these applications, we have things that we can do, but do we have the infrastructure that can support it here in Africa today? And you can see that AI and blockchain, whether we like it or not, they are disruptive technology, and if we are not prepared for it, it's going to catch us off guard. How many of us believe that? That if you're not ready for AI, if you're not ready for the applications of blockchain, I know that many a times people are scared of the fact that they're going to lose jobs because of the applications of AI. But rather than bothering about losing your job, why not prepare yourself to be able to use this as a tool, right? Are we on the same page? Are we together? All right, can we move? All right, so I know I said I wasn't going to talk much about AI and blockchain, but you can see here that by combining the values of blockchain and AI, three major things that we could get. Number one is authenticity, because you have several models that are being trained by AI, but if you're able to store those models on blockchain, then you have more security, right? And then augmentation. If the AI brings a level of intelligence to the transactions you're trying to do on blockchain, so the interoperability of AI and blockchain brings massive benefits. So there's authenticity, talking about security, augmentation, and then automation. AI, like our previous speakers have said already, there's a lot of automation that comes with the advent of AI, reducing the amount of human intervention that is required for applications to work. And we can see that across several industries, we have applications of both blockchain and AI, although we are focusing more on the MSMEs, but across several industries, we know that we could have medium and small enterprises across several industries such as healthcare, governance, education, financial services, with more fintechs blowing up than banks, right? The number of fintechs that have launched in the past 5 years compared to the number of payment requests, the amount of steps it would take for someone in MoneyPoint to approve that process compared to if Access Bank wanted to make a procurement process, compared to if Access Bank wanted to make a procurement, you realize that Access Bank, so for example, Access Bank Ilorin wants to buy an ATM. The request, this is the implementation of AI and blockchain today. And the first major challenge, although we like to blame a lot more other things, the most major challenge is digital illiteracy. And you can see a quote there that says, the illiterate of the 21st century is not the one who cannot read or write. It's the education of people into the application. And I know that that's a lot of what we have been trying to accomplish here today. So let us know that there's a lot of applications that we can make use of. There's a lot of things, applications that we want to implement. The question is, do we have the skills? We're trying to talk to you guys from the early stages to let you know that there's a lot more that we can accomplish. And we have to move from our traditional technological methods to starting to implement the advantages that AI and blockchain bring to us. All right? You are able to have your data stored a lot more closer to home. What that also helps you do is that you are able to make more actionable decisions because your data is a lot more interactive with, right? Are we together? Don't worry, I'm rounding up soon. So with Metro Edge, you will see things a lot more like Metro telecom providers that help you interconnect between your device edge or between your micro edge, which is your cell towers, and then connect them to the data centers where your data can actually be stored. You can go to the next slide. Your macro edge here, you talk about, so there's something we call hyperscale data centers. These are large data centers, which most of the time, they are the ones that host the nodes that run our AI computational nodes, all right? So you see a lot of data centers like Google, data centers that are owned by AWS, data centers that are owned by IBM. Those are hyperscale data centers because the amount of computational workload that goes on in there is a lot more. And those are the things that we need to. So you can see the buildup of the architecture from your micro edge, which is your data capturing devices, to your micro edge, to your metro edge, to your macro edge, right? And we know that at the macro edge, if we are able to have a lot more of this in Nigeria today, then we know that we have a lot more data that we can interact with. We have a lot more solutions that we can build closer to home, right? So from the macro edge, of course, because a lot of these macro edges are owned by the hyperscaler, literally a summary. We can see the progression from your edge devices, captures data. So not just your mobile phone, you have sensors, you have cameras, data at your edge device layer. And you have your micro edge, which is basically your network connectivity, right? And you have your metro edge, data centers, and you can see here, so, and platform Equinix, you're able to have your AI processing workloads in there, also interacting with your blockchain network, and then you can connect to the public cloud, make it publicly available, and all of that. I think my next slide, can we go one slide ahead? Okay, roadmap to the future of AI. Number one, we need to get our data in place. The more we're able to get data, the more we're able to build actionable solutions based on data we had. We've had a lot of talks talking about patterns, being able to model according to those patterns. Now, if you don't have data, then how can you build a model according to data? So we need to incorporate gathering data into a lot of things that we do. A lot of people say data is the new gold, data is the new oil, right? The more data you have, the more empowered you are to make decisions, right? Infrastructure, I've spoken a lot about infrastructure. Skills, again, we confirmed that we don't have any 21st century illiterates in the room, right? But apart from the skills that you already have, you can also do well to upskill yourself. So we have a lot of courses on AI, we have a lot of courses on blockchain technologies that you can invest in yourself, and you never know where it will take you. And then policies, like we spoke about, incentives that could come from the government or all around us could help boost the adoption of AI and blockchain technology. Let me move to, all right. There's a case study that I'll quickly run through here. So Netherlands and Belgium, they built an AI and blockchain solution for cross-border, oh, my slide has gone. Okay. Basically, it's in the field of educational certificates and diplomas. Now, I don't know how many of us have gone through this here. I went through this here in this Senate building when I was trying to get my transcript. It's not the, I can assure you, Unilag's process is even fine compared to stories I've heard from other universities. But there is a bit of hassle that goes into the process of you getting your transcript from this school when you're trying to apply to that school, or when you're trying to apply to a job. Now, the solution that these guys built was basically to say, if the school can upload that digital certificate on a blockchain network, right, then it is automatically verified, because everything you do on the blockchain network is according to the scope of work, right? Proof of work, basically. So if a stamp it, this person has to stamp it, if they're able to upload it to a blockchain network, send that key to the receiving institution, then they're able to automatically verify that you attended this school, right? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Today, they run to say, rather than keeping it centralized on a cloud provider, we can decentralize it for you, which means if you have your PC that can run computational workloads, if you connect it to the blockchain network, you can be part of that blockchain that also helps run computations for AI workloads and all of that. We'll just take a moment, read about it. I think this is about it. Of course, this is main one today. So main one, like I said, primarily is a telecoms and network provider. I have submarine cable all the way from Lagos to Portugal, and is also advancing the push of internet in Nigeria today. In 2022, main one got acquired by Equinix, and Equinix, like I said, is the #1 digital infrastructure provider in the world. And you can see across the world, Equinix has over 240 data centers. And with the addition of main one and MDXI data centers to that network, it means that from Lagos, Nigeria, you're able to access any of the data centers that Equinix has today. My concluding slide, which is the last slide, you can just run through everything. The question we usually ask at the data center is, what do you want to build, right? Anything you want to build, you should be able to access it within a data center, either by running your own workloads in there or by interconnecting with someone that helps. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
So please give Mr. Yodamokwe a round of applause. Literacy and south of Sahara, it talks about things like quality of data, infrastructure, and legal issues. Then he looked at the infrastructure roadmap, he looked at technology, data and infrastructure, and government. Then he looked at the structure itself, some companies that are actually delivering these products, and why it's relevant, why it's important that we as Africans are ready for this kind of development. And this is what are we going to do as Africans? We use them. Now, Dr. Chika said, I just want 2 answers, that's all. What is the consequence of just using them? Yes? What? Yes, non-optimization of what is available. That's it. It's to start building our businesses on these platforms, but to also scale our businesses up so that people like you will be constantly relevant. You know, you have been trained to be developers in AI, in blockchain, and so that you are constantly relevant. You have to create an industry. So your future, you have to create your own future by yourself. So you have to create startups, and you have to create startups that scale up so that you can build businesses that are sufficiently large, so that we are not dominated and dependent on these two continents. Thank you very much. You want to? Yeah, okay.
So another round of applause for Dr. Fashino and for all the speakers as well. Thank you so much. Guys, I know that some things are going on in this place. Don't worry, there is something packed deep that is coming. Just give us some minutes and you get it. Yes. So we're going to be concluding the morning session now. We're going to have final discussion. So I'm going to invite some people who have some other people that will join. So what? No. You're part of the panel. You have a panelist here. So please don't. We've been talking to you. We've not allowed you to ask us questions. So you're going to have time now to ask questions. So I'm going to call out to the stage. We have 3 panelists already. They are going to answer some of the questions you'll be having. And I'm going to call the representative of NIDA DG, Dr. Engineer Mrs. Falilat Olaiton Jimo. Also, I'm going to call DK to join us. Jude, come. As the moderator, I don't have a seat, so I will stand up, no problem. That's fine. You have one for me. Okay. I think we need it. So we want to finish by 2, so without wasting time, you've seen the profile of Dr. Bayo, you've seen the profile of Dr. Nando. I'm going to, and also for Miwon as well, and also Dr. over there. But we have 2 new people joining them, so I'm going to give the mic to them to just briefly, in less than 30 seconds, you are pitching to somebody, tell us what you do, sir. So, Chief Toyo Oloniteru, you have the mic, please. Just tell us more about yourself, please.
Hello? Okay. Thank you very much. I think you have the opportunity to know more about me tomorrow when I'm, when I'll be giving a keynote, in tomorrow's session. But, it's my pleasure to be here with you because I'm a University of Lagos Ambassador Extraordinary, a product of the Faculty of Science, Department of Mathematics and Statistics, a product of the Faculty of Law, Department of Jurisprudence and International Law, and also a product of the Faculty of Engineering, Department of Systems Engineering, University of Lagos. Because this is, this university is my alma mater, and I'm very proud because I've been given very solid foundation from my first degree to my postgraduate degree before I went for further training at Harvard Kennedy School, Harvard University, at the Royal Holloway, University of London, in Egamsore, Information Security Group, and the Smart Card Center of Excellence, and also at the University of Strathclyde Law School, where I have LLM in Information Technology and Telecommunications Law, and also in Strathclyde Business School on Applied Economics. So I also studied in Asia, in Taiwan Space International. So I just let a book that, and that is the reason why I find it very interesting that the University of Lagos is, organizing this conference. Fortunately, I want to assure you that there will be more jobs than people that will be able to do the jobs in this emerging technology era that we are going to. So I'm happy that a lot of you are here, and tomorrow you are going to be hearing more of that, of what happened in this subject matter we are discussing. And interestingly, because I'm asked to talk about myself, I'm fortunate enough to be able to be one of the people that handle a lot of things in terms of development, setting up of MTN Nigeria, the street banking you are seeing now, ATM, deployment of ATM in non-bank locations. And the University of Lagos is one of the first universities in Nigeria where ATMs have been deployed in non-bank locations. And I don't know whether most of you will have been around then. There's a through the wall ATM, quick cash ATM at the main gate, and there is an in-lobby at this, guest house that we have here, that I put here because it's my university, before we begin to do it to other Nigeria. I'd like to stop there.
Thank you, Chief. I think we have another model now, LSM, large school model. Chief has gone to several schools, so he has all the model, everything. Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much. So, Jude, tell us about yourself. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here again. My name is Jude DK. I'm a co-founder of a company called Get Equity, and we are an exchange basically for private capital businesses or private capital. And what this means is, think of your stock market, but for the private, more like the private industry, private equity, all of that. So businesses, asset management, all of the, let me say, the financial infrastructure that enables people to buy and sell businesses and also be able to invest in businesses as well. I am an alumni of myself, and not just myself, but also some parts of my team, some of which I had from the computer science department as well, to be able to build out what we have, where people have been able to invest in businesses to the tune of, I think, $3 million now. And also spread across about 7 countries and counting. So thank you very much.
Sorry, HOD computer science is not around. Okay, don't worry. We've not seen you in the department, so they'll start writing letters. So thank you, Jude. And I mean, Jude is big now. I remember Jude in those days. 322, C#. You suffered. But we are making it now. Very good. So good. So I want you guys to write your questions. You've been hearing things since morning. So please write your questions, because after about grammar. In fact, the management told me that you have started speaking mathematics, speaking your language. So this one was beyond them when they were listening and they had to leave for other events. So we had a lot of things. Now, Nigeria, we know our problem. The MSMEs are there. I have a director of entrepreneurship here for the university, Professor Sunday Adebisi. Please, a round of applause for him. So, you can stand up and think about, let them see you. Yeah. So, now, the cocoa is, how do we grow? AI, how do we make them to use this? Suya Sela, how will you use AI? How? I just came back from...
Give him another round of applause. He's a pride of the university. He's doing a lot of work with the business community, and that's why I love University of Lagos. What you have is not common. So, for SMEs, just as I said, they contribute as much as 80% of GDP. They are very, very critical for nation building. They are critical for wealth creation, prosperity, security for all of us. So therefore, we have a responsibility of making new technology usable for them. And we have to think in the context of money. All our sex money and use it to do their transaction. Or the fact that when ATM came or POS came, we are always thinking, how do we make it easy for people who cannot use an application to be able to use it in a very simplistic manner? So the whole concept of democratization is to make a mama put, to have a special oracle that she can go and talk to. When should I cook rice? When should I cook beans? How much bags of rice should I cook? Who are likely going to come? Will it rain today? Will tomorrow's weather affect my sales? And because she's able to consult that AI oracle, I'm not talking about herbalist here, but a special oracle, she's able to make savings, which helps her to increase her productivity whilst also increasing her revenue, which gives her extra money that she can use to pay her tax, whether state or local government tax, send her children to school, take care of her health, and live a good life. Are we together, guys? That simplification, make it easy for her to consume AI solution to make everyday decisions. The same way she can look at her wristwatch and say, oh, it is 7 o'clock, what can I do today? Now, when it comes to blockchain, which in simple term, I call it, very secured, distributed and immutable, record-keeping system, which is particularly more important for these categories of people. They have a lot of things they want to keep in a way that cannot be changed. What we call smart contracting, for example. How do I make it easy for them to create simple things, loyalty cards, that people cannot change, like a suya seller. The suya seller will tell you, Tayo, if you come 4 times in a month, by the time you come for the 5th time, you will get it free. How do we create a system that is immutable, distributed within a network, whether it's going to be on his phone or somewhere that he can use. So the point I'm making is we need to think extremely street level. When I was speaking the other time, I was talking about Mama Put, I was talking about Figo, I was talking about Waso. If I ask many of you, you don't know those things. So if we want to really make AI or blockchain meaningful, we need to understand the life cycle, the value chain, the reality of Mama Put, Suya Seller, and begin to say, what will AI mean in helping them to make basic decisions? Or what will AI, what will blockchain mean in helping them to store important information in an immutable way that nobody can change it, and it can drive their business success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for him. If you are looking for final year project topic, you already have maybe up to 5 or 10 now. So don't just go and be building car rental system. They've built it over and over. We have our problem. Yesterday I was talking to some guys from Techno. They came around, wanted to partner in the university, do some stuff. And they look at, they said, we don't know your context. We can't build for your context. But we have a platform. And in Nigeria, we are using their phones. They call it themselves Transition Group. So Techno, Phoenix, and all those major things we are using. So what they want to see how we can start building solutions on their platform for our context, because they know that they don't know our context. We have to build for our context. So we have a lot of topics to work on. Fine. Oh, it's like we're forgetting those guys over there. Can you just give us a shout there? Let's know that you are there. At the top there. Very good, very good, very good. So they are there. So we need to look at them at times. Yeah, good. So let's go to Jude. Jude, money. I know you are not, your problem now is not about developing, it's about money. Oh. Okay, man. Yes, we are coming to that. So, Jude, let's talk about money. Then I'm going to also talk about the big fish in the room now. So, Jude, what will you say if you want to invest? And I know you are not just going to dash money, because I've not given us anything. So you're not going to dash money. So what are the kind of solutions you are looking for MSMEs if you are going to invest?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about it from two ways. First is as an investor, and then secondly, as an MSME, what are you trying to do? I think one of the biggest things with MSMEs in general is growth. And for growth, you need access to cash, either through investments, through loans, whatever. But it's access to cash. And I guess in the financial industry, we just tend to call it liquidity in general. Every small business, from the suya seller, he wants to open up new spots. And I think coming into Unilag now, there were places we used to eat at, and I've noticed now have new branches. You know, over time, they've spread, they've grown. Obviously, I'm pretty sure the amount we used to eat at that time is not what it is now. But in these sort of instances, when you want to be able to, invest in a business, you want to be able to see that business's trajectory and how it will look like. It's called forecasting. You want to be able to see if this business gets maybe 100,000 naira or 10 million naira, what would it look like 5 years from now? And at the end of the day, what every investor wants is, if I put my money into this business, in this time frame, maybe in 5 years' time, how much am I getting back? The entire point of any investor, anyway, is I need to get my money back. I think, so for that kind of system, I'm with MSMEs, and I'm going to drive back to your point. It's always the idea of, I put money into this business, how can they grow? What are the things that are available for them to grow with this extra money I've given them, to be able to get my money back in the next 5 years? And so driving back to, democratizing AI and blockchain, I think one of the very first instances and real-world instances I've seen of the blockchain in itself is credit. And I also want to add that prior to starting my company, Get Equity, I was a smart contract engineer for about 5 years now. And part of what we did, especially in evolving markets, we did this in India and in the US, is a credit system. And I know it's one thing that's talked about in Nigeria a lot. How do you get access to data to provide credit to people? And one thing we've been able to see is that is where a combination of the blockchain and AI, it manifests so beautifully. Because now you're able to get, for example, I mean, the federal government has increased the price of school fees to a lot of students. There's a lot of people who can't afford it. With access to data, you're able to know how is this person performing in school, what are the chances of this person getting a good job in the next couple of years, that they're able to pay back this amount that we've given to them with interest. I mean, maybe if somebody had invested in me back then and paid my own school fees, they'd have made returns on that kind of investment. So similar things like that. I think this is
So you want that kind of AI solutions?
There are quite interesting simulations for that. And I've seen, for example, in terms of schools, people building AI and credit solutions to be able to cater to school fees, and then also for loans to businesses. And we're starting to see those things even in Nigeria here. There are a couple of companies who are trying to look at those sort of scenarios for how, in the grand scheme of things, how that would look like for example, being able to provide credit to all of Unilag students. All you just have to do is show some particular data and come and request for your school fees. Thank you.
Thank you. The Vice Chancellor listened to you very well. So maybe we'll come back to you and we'll get some students around to build that kind of solution so that they get their school fees paid and they move on. Yeah. Very good. If you are interested in that project, come and see me after this session. Thank you so much. We will just break and give you some time to talk. I know you have so many things. There's an inaugural lecture today, I think so. So we have the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, the 13th Vice Chancellor, the first female Vice Chancellor. I don't want to be counting, no. So, and she has been very busy. She has been to the island. She has gone for IADS program. She says she will just come, and she's here. We have Professor Flashade Ogushola. Let's clap for her, please. Let's just listen to her so that we can, we won't waste our time.
Thank you very much for having me here. And Dr. Dumuyiwa, thank you for hosting this. And I want to thank all our panel speakers and all the people who have contributed to making this happen. I'm not going to pretend to have a deep understanding of AI and blockchain and all that, and machine learning. I'm from the analog age, baby boomers. You are Gen Z and Gen, which other one is it? Y and all of them. Yeah. So, what I try, I have to tell you, I try very hard. But from the perspective of the University of Lagos and universities in general, what I think our job is to do is to produce the data. We have the capacity, and now we must be much more intentional about data. And we're beginning to do that at the University of Lagos. Some of the challenges of storing data, keeping data, which I think we maybe got wrong before because we wanted to have all our servers and so on, is to go into the cloud. Again, everything comes at a cost, but it's a cost that I believe we must pay because the returns on that investment is great. The future is about data. We can't do AI without the kind of data and the algorithms and the machine. They need algorithms, and that's data. So we need to get not just data or any type of data, but clean, correct data. We must, and when we do our research, we must be asking the right questions and applying the right method so that whatever we do is valid and true. I keep saying, research got us to the moon. If people cut corners, they will not land on that moon because nobody went there to actually measure it. They looked at the, they looked at the speed of light, they calculated that. Somebody developed the equation that would allow us to do that. And so I come back to certain specialties that we're always a bit worried about, the physics and all these. These are fundamentals. It's how we apply them. So I just want to say I'm glad you are here, and I'm glad you're showing them the applications of what they learn. There's a lot to be done. I'm coming from a lecture or an awareness, well, not awareness, but on climate change and talking about biodiversity and the work that needs to be done if the planet is going to be comfortable for all of us to live on. There are lots of work to be done, and in every single specialty. So University of Lagos students are creative. That's something we find all the time. You can find ways around anything, and you can find ways to make things work. The country is difficult, but we have two choices: to lie down and say, oh, they're doing me, or to use it as an opportunity to improve things. The greatest inventions have been done when things are hard. Nigeria is going through a hard time, and this is the time for us all to stand up and be counted. So machine learning will help, AI will help, but for us to get it right and for it to work for us, we must have the data that comes from us for that. So I congratulate all of you on this, and I thank you, and I'm sure we will ask questions because we're doing a lot more town and gown. We don't have all the answers, and we don't have all the kind of intelligence that matters in learning. So thank you very much for being here, and I will get out of your way. Thanks a lot.
Please don't go, please. Sorry, we've not had photographs since, so we'll just take this opportunity. Please, don't worry, we'll continue our panel discussion, don't worry. So please, and Dr. Fashino, please, the LOC. So we're back. Okay, she's also, I'll come back to that. So now, let's come to, please, I hope you've written your questions. Anybody, any usher helping us collect the questions? Please help us collect the questions. So, Dr. Onando, will come to you. You know, I have read, reasoned, sat down, thought of it over and over again. There is no nation that is developing without strong R&D at the university level, even at the industry level. You are working as a researcher with IBM, and in fact, you are now working on the health system using AI. You want to be using AI to generate maybe new molecules. I don't know, it's not my area. So something like that. What will you advise? We are saying democratizing AI for MSMEs growth, but we know that the core of this has to come from research. How can we make progress?
You mean how can we make progress in research?
In Africa, yes. What do we do? What is lacking? What can we do? What are your own thoughts? Because we still need to produce things that can feed so that these MSMEs can consume, or people developing for them can consume those solutions to be. So what do you suggest for us to make progress?
Yeah, I think the greatest problem with Africa and probably MSMEs, right, is I think a mindset problem. We are stuck in a mindset of trying to look for money, trying to get rich so fast, and there's no particular process to follow to get there. I'll give you an example of a former student of mine who cleared in 2015, and with his colleagues, they started a company. And this company is an ed tech. right, for analytics of high school and performance and stuff like this. When I came back for my PhD, I met him and we had coffee. And I told him, okay, so you have this number of schools as your customers, right, in Kenya. Why don't you then now collect data from these schools so that then you can now start building AI on top of that? What kind of AI you can build was sort of like customized course target for students and stuff like this. And these are startup that has now hedge fund, right, has been funded some millions of dollars. But they're spending that money sort of expanding into other countries of Africa, going brute force, as opposed to stepping back, collecting data, and starting the process of now giving AI a chance. And that is what Uber did. Uber, when they started, they were not making any profits. They were just collecting data from people, what journeys are you making, and stuff like this. And now they are making use of that data. So I think if we can have a mind shift, like mindset shift, so that then we move into how can I start from the beginning? When I start operations, where are the data points? Where am I moving? And I'm glad the VC mentioned the first thing is data. I'm a champion of data. The first thing we have to do is data. We can never move forward if we don't have data, and Africa doesn't have data because we have not spent time to curate, to collect and stuff like this. So MSMEs must start thinking it's not all about reaching the highest number of customers. It's not about all about making the highest profits, because that will end. Kodak was the best company of imaging and photos and photography. But when they could not change their mindset into AI and this kind of digital photos, they lost their market. So we must change our mindset. I think that is our blockage, that's our blocker. If SMEs can start from the beginning, build the foundations for AI and start building these models, we'll go far.
Thank you. Please round of applause for him. But before I leave you, because I'm not going to come back with another question, what do you think in terms of we as researchers, university, research institute, what should we be doing to support this?
Yeah, okay, so I think one thought that comes to mind is, as researchers, we must think about how do we miniaturize our models, right? How do we reduce the size of models? And I think there's already work on that. For example, the Llama model from Facebook is a miniaturized version. But because we want to think about SME who can't afford, like, for example, a big model to train, even fine-tune sometimes. So the idea is, how can we make the model so small that everybody can be able to maybe fit even on an edge device, like a phone, a tab, or whatever it is. And the other side of things is compute, because compute is another factor. Having this hardware that is accelerated, that is very powerful. And I think some companies like IBM are working on things called hybrid cloud, where you have your small hardware in your office, and they have their big hardware somewhere. So you want to combine the power of compute on what pay as you use basis. So only the time when you really need high compute, then you push it there, and then you get your data back. So I think those two unities for us to democratize research for MSMEs.
Thank you so much. So we're going to come to, before I go to policy people, I have two policy people here. I want to talk about, you see this thing, they'll say AI. Somebody cannot call. You are calling and as you are having so many problems, your call is dropping, that's a simple one. You are trying to attend Zoom meeting and the thing is breaking. So ICT infrastructure, before we can even talk about enjoying AI, so from me one, what are the problems we're having? Why are we still having that? And how can we kind of go above that? We can't benefit from AI if we still have problems with ICT. And I think we're still at that level. Digitalization is still a problem for us in the nation and in Africa, across Africa. So how can we scale? Because we can't talk about AI without even talking about digitalization. So what are your thoughts for us?
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm the only one that did not represent my department here. Department of Mechanical Engineering, University of Lagos. Proudly. But yeah, so the first thing that you spoke about, the current challenges that we have with our telecoms and internet infrastructure today. I think first of all is the fact that a lot of the content that we consume locally is still being sourced internationally, right? Which means all your requests to Netflix, all your requests to Facebook is still going outside the country. And the amount of infrastructure and the amount of data you need to access that is a lot more. So one of the things that we are pushing in May 1, and I'm sure the ICT community generally, is trying to get a lot of that content locally so that a lot of our interaction is here locally. So I know that today we have Netflix in Nigeria, here in Lagos. We have a couple of nodes for Facebook, a couple of nodes for Microsoft. And the aim is that with the more local content that we have, the better our internet is, right? And in a bid to mitigate that, one other thing that we are pushing for is a collaboration between many telecom providers and infrastructure providers. So we have a lot of companies today that they specialize in building infrastructure and they lease it to the people that build ducts all around Lagos, that fiber providers can come and utilize those ducts for a lease charge, and then you can, so rather than you digging the ground every single time you want to build fiber, someone has already built open access fiber that you can. So the more collaboration we have across the industries, the better it will be for me. The last thing I think you now spoke of is we have all of this AI out there. How can we access it, basically?
Digitalization is not.
Digital, yeah. So I mean, the first level is our infrastructure here. We need to get our internet better. We need to get our content more local. The second thing is the barrier of entry. So today you want to run an AI workload. The first thing you're thinking of is how many Azure servers do I need to buy? How many AWS servers do I need to buy to run all of this? And one thing that I believe a lot of companies here, a lot of ICT companies, including me, are trying to do, like we said, we have a data center company, which has also then birthed a cloud company. So we have MDXI Cloud locally here in Nigeria, and the aim of that is basically to reduce the barrier of entry. So you want to run an AI workload, you need a server, rather than go to AWS, rather than go to Microsoft, where you pay in dollars. We have our local cloud out here, locally local. But basically the idea is that your interaction is here in Nigeria. You can spin up resources on demand in the same business model, spin up resources on demand, run your workload, and turn it off when you no longer need it. And that way, your interaction is kept local, and then your barrier of entry is reduced.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for him. So we need more of CDN, Content Delivery Network. Yeah, okay, thank you. So let me come to before we had more of female, women, when we started in the morning. Now we are changing it. So let's go to doctor. Now, we'll come back to Chief later. Chief has to end everything, so summarize everything for us. So doctor, how do current regulatory frameworks impact the adoption of AI and blockchain by MSMEs? The current regulatory frameworks, I know NISDA handles a lot of things on policy, and you do regulation as well.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to regulatory framework, for most students, it's like policy, framework, or is boring document. I'm not interested. But the reality on ground is that for any enabling environment in terms of technology, where I'm going is this. The essence of you within this ecosystem, for you to, let me use your language, to see where the money is. Where's the money? Okay, it's one thing for you to work really hard in the laboratory, is another thing for that hard work to really pay into money. At the end of the day, we all want to pay our bills. That's the most important thing. It's not about the Y, the X you've been going through, integral, Fourier series, or whatever lab assignment and lab work you have. At the end of the day, what really matters in Nigeria today, most youth will spend most of their time online in different social media looking at what they think is entertaining. I want to beg you today to look at those boring documents that comes from anything from your ecosystem. It's coming from DSN, it's coming from wherever, from any one of them on the table. It might look so boring, but that's where you want to poke your nose into. For example, talking about regulatory framework, if you have not really looked at the Startup Act, I'm very sure you have not even registered on the Startup Portal. I'm very sure
will be interested in looking at it, or summarizing it in a way that they'll be able to relate with, so that they don't see it as a complex document that they cannot go through. Okay, so, Chief, to wrap up our own, and we'll listen to the question from the students, or from the participants generally. What regulatory changes or frameworks will you recommend? I know you do a lot on reviewing policy. You try to distill the policy and talk about the policy. You are combining mathematics, cryptography, you are combining it with law. So what regulatory changes or frameworks will you recommend to further support the democratization of blockchain and AI?
Thank you very much. I think the way I would like to answer the question is to be able to integrate all that my co-speakers and panelists have said to enable the audience and participants here to appreciate what is happening. For example, we cannot be deepening what is already in existence when we have not even done anything about what is in existence. So the first thing is for people to be aware. And I would like to start by saying that idea of mindset. Because mindset, like you have said, I'm a mathematician and we are trying to solve problems. But you cannot solve problems when there is even no problem. And the problem is that people are trying to create problem from nothing. What we have in Nigeria are issues. We don't have problem, but we have issues. We are trying to create problem out of that issues. Taking that as a solution. That is just the truth of the matter. And the reason why we say that is you have to listen to me very well, because I'm a product of University of Lagos, and I started my education in University of Lagos here by doing a degree, by doing diploma in data processing at the computer center. And during that time, the computer does not have a hard disk. You have to put your MS-DOS in drive A and the data diskette in drive B. You must be saving every 5 minutes or 3 minutes, because when they take power, you lose all your work. If I'm typing today now, consciously or unconsciously, I have to save my work. Because even though the Word document, or I said, can still save the document, save it, which was impossible then. I passed through all these cases, and I need to share those experiences with you. And now, when I was at the University of Lagos, government used to pay bursary, 500 naira, depending on your community, whether you are a Bira, or you are a Tiv, or you are Hausa, or you are a Kiti. Your association, you will pay a certain amount of money to the Association Student Union. So the 500 naira is not a complete 500 naira that you will collect. That is a mentality issue. When I was at the University of Lagos, I make 5,000 naira every month. By not, and I don't collect. If you go to Lagos, I never collect bursary once. And how do I do it? I trek from Unilag to Onipan to go and teach in afternoon school. I study mathematics to go and teach in afternoon school. Then from there, the money is not enough, begin to look for. And at 300 level, I started taking care of adults. I brought my cousin to Jaja Hall, started taking Erika Hall, I started taking care of adults. And I don't have time for all this. Today, up till now, I suffer from reading inadequacies. If you tell me that this is court, this is court, this is court, I don't know their logo because I'm too busy. And in final year, I spent 30 minutes in the class when they are teaching us stochastic process, because I have to go and teach quantitative method that apply to insurance at City Hall in Lagos Island. I don't have time for that nonsense. What am I trying to tell you? That a lot of you now want to jackpot, want to go to Canada, want to go to all those things, when, like she has said, national blockchain policy have been passed, and if you look at the implementation framework of that, federal government is going to pump a lot of billions of naira into it. Is that those money? Is it for me, given my age as an entrepreneur, or you? So if you now go to Canada, you're now thinking of going to America, you don't read the policy, then whose problem? Not only that, the same thing, there is the Nigeria Artificial Intelligence Scheme. There is the Nigeria Artificial Intelligence Research Center. Do you know about it? A lot of money is being pumped there. So for us to be going there on social media to say, government is not doing this, government is not doing, when government are doing things. And let me tell you, I am an entrepreneur. When I was talking the other time, I never talk about it. I am the founder and the president of Crypto Economic Institute of Africa. I am the founder and the MD of Spidler Cyber Law Center. I developed the curriculum, I gave it to Adekunle Ajayi University, Akungba Akoko, since 2016 to be using cyber law because there is a gap. Because the lawyers we produce today from our universities, they have expired ab initio at production. I am not joking. Because we are here, we have to be frank with ourselves. You can say I'm a mathematician, you can see for me to go ahead and establish a Spindler Cyber Law Center to ensure that lawyers are structured properly to be able to fit into the economy. I am also the co-founder and executive director of Data Analytics Privacy Technologies Limited, DAPT, both in Nigeria and in London. As I am coming here and I just gave appointment to one copper that work with us, that was very something that is going to continue to work, try to look at it, this experience so that we can appreciate it. Because I'm so fortunate that in Nigeria, I told you earlier that when we were installing the ATM, we put Unilag here, is VSAT, we used to power it. At that time, it was whether it's SCPC or MCPC, whether it's what kind of VSAT or technology, we have to use GS Telecoms, Empyrean, and all those things. We put one in Unilever, in Agbara, we have to use VSAT there, all those things. There was no, even this GSM, GPRS, 3G, Edge that we're talking about then. So,
we have so many questions.
Yes. So the summary of what I'm trying to say is that a lot of policy have been put in place. We should translate them, and that is why we are working by bringing academic and industry to bridge it. Make sure that you students are aware that there are so many opportunities that are there to be done, and SMEs are doing it today. Just to summarize it, because what you see POS everywhere throughout the whole of Nigeria today is what we call straight banking. Before, it doesn't exist. So even when we are complaining about technology, there are technological improvement. Before the GSM, before the 3G or the 4G, you cannot have those POSs all around Nigeria. But now, people sit down there with umbrella and they keep on providing banking services here and there. The same thing is going to happen in this era of artificial intelligence and blockchain, especially when it comes to the LLM, the language processing, because we have over 250 ethnic groups and languages, and for us to do text to word and word to text, each and every one of us has something to do. Nobody can take the job of one another, and I would like to stop there, and tomorrow
thank you
and do that.
Thank you so much, Chief. You have 30 minutes tomorrow to tell us more. And let me say, actually, Chief has been driving. We've been working together to run some kind of trainings on blockchain at NIT Hub. And we've had a session, so we resumed the sessions in January. December is almost gone, so we resumed sessions in January. And those trainings, some of them are free, so I think take advantage of that to learn more. Okay, now we want to look at the questions from the participant, from the audience. Oh, okay, sorry. Let's give the mic to Professor Adebisi. He has a question. Yeah, microphone. No.
And I want to thank everyone for having this kind of event, our research, our team. Thank you very much, sir. I just want to, as a consumer of what you do, and as someone who deal with the youth too, and not necessarily the youth that does computer, but other youth that were trying to activate, to solve the problem of unemployment in Nigeria, by creating enterprises which may not necessarily be integrated to technology. So I want to speak to you from the point of what I have seen. And first of all, I want to thank Dr. Adekombi very well. Just like the moderator said the other time I sat in this place. So the first presentation was extremely technical, very technical, speaking to the computer people. So, we were looking at it, trying to make out what belongs to us from it. But it was a bit difficult. But maybe because I work with them, I've worked with Dr. Dumuyiwa before, so I could pick a bit of some of those things. So I'm speaking to the computer students now. You guys that will build a lot of things for us. So when Dr. Adekombi came on board, the knowledge of marketing and the knowledge of product development and the integration of what will happen to Mama Put Those guys are built to create enterprise, integrated into what blockchain and AI can do, began to speak to us to appreciate what this can do to our businesses. I represent them now. So it is always very important at every point in time to speak our language. When you do not do it, even the ordinary person on the street cannot understand the importance of all you're discussing for how it can improve their businesses. When the female speaker was talking about, it has to do with the money. We, at every point in time, before we drop another additional cost to what we do in business, we want to be sure that 3 times of that cost will come back to us. So we, first of all, want to be convinced that this thing you want us to take is going to take my bottom line from, 20,000 naira monthly to like 30,000 naira monthly. Yet, I may still not trust you. I will give a very good example. You see that today, I'll use an example of Google. If Google had come to us to say, well, we're subscribing to the Gmail, then we should pay, you and I will not subscribe to, to Google Mail. It was a freemium, fund forward. I'm going to talk about 2 things. It was funded forward. All of us log into Google, and I used Google for like 12 years before they told me you have exhausted, you have to pay. In less than 15 minutes, there was something I was supposed to receive from my private email. It told me it's filled up. It took me like 2 days to be able to pay. I was using different cards. I became restless because I needed to get those things. So I've become a slave to my Google Gmail, and I needed to subscribe and pay, get my credit card to pay. So why I'm saying this is that we need people too that will fund forward infrastructure. We need people too that will make an investment forward to the micro, small, and medium enterprises. But because there's a serious classification among the 3, focus is better on medium. When the medium, because there's a huge difference, among the 3. Huge difference. So I believe you need to focus on the medium so that they can make a very great impact. For the micro to see and want to become like, the small and the micro, it's important. Because that micro will never lift a finger until it can see that it is possible to be like this, medium that has done something that is fantastic. The last thing I want to say, to you, Ma, I have a lecture I believe Dr. Dumiwa can share with you. I have criticized the startup art. It's not going to work. You've done it without speaking to many of us who understand what needs to happen. Nigeria is not an extremely technological-oriented nation. It is technology that will enable all we do. Narrowing down startup art to enterprise that will be created out of technology has made a mess of everything. I've criticized it, I've written it, and I'm sending it. It's important. Technology will help all our analog enterprise creativity. We're not in UK, we're not in Spain, we'll get there. But as of today, it's not, sorry, sir, I will stop now. Mama Moria is here. We all know Mama Moria, just like he said. All she needs is a technology enablement to double what she does every day. Ichi is not going to come on board and create a tech startup, but she needs technology to support that. By you taking out startups that that are not technology based out of the startup art, it's not going to make enterprise to develop in Nigeria. That's a strong feedback, and I want you please to take it back. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. So you've also had the business part of it, which is very important. So very, very important. Yeah, so I have thank you so much, Professor Adebisi. I have quite a number of questions here. I don't know how to summarize them because there are many. So I see challenges around how do you actually get into this AI space. I see that. I see things around question on data. So I will just read some and try to find, let me just read some. Okay, let me read this question. As students how can we modernize AI to help in relieving workload and maximizing output? Well, Dr. Nando, the person is asking you, so let me give it to you. Dr. Nando, you can have, yeah. But don't answer now. Let me just give more questions out. Then we'll just take one here and just. So somebody said, is the problem of MSME not only infrastructure, but also digital literacy? In what time frame do you think the constraints will be solved? And what role does academia and MSME play in solving the problem of infrastructure and literacy? Oh, infrastructure is for you, but join literacy to it anyhow you want to join into it. So, don't you think if we are going to implement AI in solving or creating sustainable solutions to an issue, we should give it not only the data related to the issue, we should apply all data parameters known to man? Dr. Bayo is saying, should we only be giving data relevant? Can't we train our models on all data that's relevant to human being? Yes. Well, it's noise to you, but maybe not noise to the person. So Dr. Bayo will talk about that. But we are going to take an answer, maybe 30 seconds so that we can leave. Yeah. We have spoken about AI and LLM, but so I'm not getting this one right. So let me take another question. Forgive my question. Will there be like some briefs for we, the students, as regards investments? So I've observed that there are usually motivations for people to get into these things, tech and even non-tech related. But it's become realizable or feasible if these motivations, there are investment. So let me rephrase it the way I think. How can we, that motivation to do AI to build all these things, if there's kind of support. So what kind of support framework do we have to help them to enter this space and start doing stuff? Because if you want to buy compute power and there's no dollar, you just say, well, let me leave this, it's not for me. Let me go and do software development alone, front end and back end. This AI they're talking about, front end and back end. Once I have my laptop, I'm fine, you understand? So maybe you talk about that, Jude. And we all know gambling is one of the largest industries in the world. How would AI affect this industry? It is so stochastic. So, Chief, how would the AI affect this industry? Sport bet in coming years. So, Chief, you will. Sorry, this one. I am an undergraduate of computer science, and I'm trying to figure out what is exactly that I want to specialize in. I took 2 courses on data analytics. Trying to navigate through school, life as a Nigerian child, and all of that. And I'm also, so it's like the person does not have direction. So, so doctor, from experience and every other thing, you have a PhD, and you're also working with a government agency, and you're also doing policy. So you may be able to just give some direction. So we'll start from this end now. We'll start from doctor now. And please, let's make sure that we summarize 30 seconds to 1 minute so that we can leave. Thank you so much.
Okay. I think I got the right question. I've been a founder before. I've been in the industry. I've been in academia. And now I'm in the super government. So are you trying to navigate the way? I think the first thing you want to do is prove to yourself, okay? Navigation in Nigerian term means that where is the money now? I've taken data analytics. This maths is too much. I ran away. I went to the embedded lab. The code, too much. I ran away. I went to full stack development. My eyes, this tiny codes. I ran away. And then I've looked in and out, and I'm just like, IT is so liquefied. It changes every time. You can pick a programming language now, in 6 months it's outdated. And then you're also looking at the fact that you went online, too many things out there. Where do I start from? The first thing is to be true to yourself. That's one. The second thing is, where's the money? You need to ask yourself that question very well. I tell students that I coach, I tell them, if there is no job in the world, what will you do with digital technology to get money? I think that's where you want to start from. And then if you are really confused, rather than you following those that are actually confused, you need to follow people in the field. And that's the essence of conferences like this. Look at this set of esteemed sitters here. Reduce the level of following Davido, Whiskey. Do you want to be like them? No. Follow people in that field. See where do they get their money from? What are they doing to get their money? What industry are they working in? Where is the money coming from? When you follow the right set of people, it gives you intuition. When you get that intuition, then you go back to yourself. Like I said, be true to yourself. From all these courses I've been running away from, picking and dropping and picking and dropping, which one do I really like most? Not which one is the easiest. There is no course. Even if you study Yoruba language, it's not easy. So out of all these courses, which one do I really have passion for? Perhaps because you like the lecturer, or you like the colleagues of yours that takes it, or you just admire it. And then you follow all those research you've done. Number one, true to yourself. Number two, where's the money? Number three, those in this field, where are they getting their money from? How did they do it? And then the fourth thing is, in every field, everybody needs a mentor or a coach to rise. Pick the right mentors and coach. When you pick the right ones, like I gave an instance, it makes your life easier. And then follow your passion. When you follow your passion, any cause that I said you love so much, even when you're tired, because you love it, you won't get tired. And when you start making money from it, you will even love it more. Thank you.
You so much. Be true to yourself. Don't run away from architecture. So, Chief.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. That's very lovely. I so much love this question that I'm giving, because this is a serious question for all Nigerians. It's about gambling. And that is the field of mathematics and statistics. We all know Baba Jebu, and how Baba Jebu is making money. Because this is central to all the things that we are doing here, where we are talking about money, 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 money. Because there is one aspect that we are not utilizing in Nigeria, which we are talking about suboptimal use of what we have. We are not making use of our population. Crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. Crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. And like I said before, that we have issues, but we try to create problem out of it. The assumption that we are poor, we don't have money, is wrong. If 1 million Nigerians that use 1,000 naira to drink shepe put the money together, it becomes 1,000 naira times 1 million. That's 1 billion. These poor people, they take shepe every day. And we say there's no money. What are we talking about? You prefer to go to China, World Bank, to go and borrow money, when the money is even here with you, is on the street. In Nigeria, money is on the street. So to answer this question, this December, Liverpool, that I am, and Arsenal, they are going to play. Who will win? Whether you bet with 100 naira or 200 naira or 10,000 naira or what? This is where knowledge comes in, because you are here now. They've taught you probability. You've been taught conditional probability. You'll be taught Bayesian mathematics of conditional probability. So the question for you now, if you are going to bet your money with 100 naira or 200 naira, what is the conditional probability that Liverpool or Arsenal will beat each other, given that the S1, S2, S3, you now look at the data. In the last, listen, because I can translate the S1, S2, because they've been playing for the last 10 matches they play. Home and away, home and away, home and away. The data is there. Not emotional prediction or gambling you are doing that makes you to lose your money. If based on the statistics that in the last 10 meetings these two teams meet, they've always been playing either draw or winning or draw or winning, it gives you a sufficient idea of where you should bet your money on. Because once you don't do it, and then the reason why I'm telling you, because that is why you are in school. It is not for you to have first class. If you have first class in probability, each time you bet, you are losing your money. You are don't know that your first class is not working. But when you know that conditional probability, Bayesian theorem, this is why you are giving, and it's volatile. That is why the whole field of stochastic process is there. Martingale theory and all those things, because you have been taught. Now you are using it in their life. And in mathematics, the casino never lose. The casino never lose. So when you are betting, I see a lot of people, illiteracy, that they contribute to the gambling company making so much money. They are very poor in statistics, in probability, and when they want to bet, they will take Liverpool, they will take Barca, they will take this, they will take who will score in first half. And so these are people who doesn't know anything, those doesn't know about portfolio, to know the expectation, the long run expectation, P1, S1 plus P2, S2 plus P3, to know what it comes. Yet it's betting. Why don't you rely on the fact that
we're going to have a
no, let me just say that artificial intelligence now, artificial intelligence is a field of mathematics, statistics, computer science, electrical engineering, philosophy, and a whole lot of things combined together. So artificial intelligence will allow you to be able to make that prediction almost with accuracy. You can see the IBM predicting when they want to say, okay, even now the IBM or the server, the robot is already predicting, AI is already predicting who will win the league based on big data analytics. So the more you know this, the better for you. I tell you this now to tell you that what you are studying, every one of them has real life application. Maybe at a different garden I can come and tell you that because I'm a mathematician, and to tell you what S and Y means in economics, what S and Y means in physics, what S and Y means in whatever discipline you are talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So I think my question, I'll start from the end and work my way up. So it says, what role does academia and MSMEs play in solving the problem of infrastructure and literacy? So I think for academia, this is one of the roles that you can play. This exposure is one of the massive things that an academic institution can do. I remember when I finished from here, and I'm sure many of us will have that idea, by your final paper, the mentality we used to have is that after this exam, you won't sign board and will not read. Because you feel like you have studied for 5 years and that's the end. But one thing that this is exposing you to is the fact that after your 5 years here, there's a lot more learning that you still have to do. And the fact that they're exposing you already to the fact that there's a lot more you can learn, there's a lot more you can do before you're out of here. I feel like they're already bridging that gap, and this is the role that academia can play. For the MSMEs, one thing I would say is that infrastructure always goes in the direction of pain points. So where there is a demand and where there is a pain point, infrastructure would always go in the direction to solve the problem of where that pain point is. One thing that I think that MSMEs can do is to relate more with academia. If businesses are exposing their pain points to students, like he has been saying all this while long, your final year projects should be things that are relatable. I know that outside the country, there are a lot of countries that there are a lot of things that are working in the society were projects of people in school. So the government comes to them and says that our traffic light here is not working. Someone does a final year project on implementing an AI solution that tracks the amount of data for the cars that are going through an intersection and then builds a model for the traffic light. So the more the industry and the academic institutions interoperate with each other and communicate with each other, I feel like that gap of infrastructure and literacy will be closed. The other question here is, what time frame do you think? You can't put a definite time frame. The answer to that is the faster you guys begin to take on the challenges that are in front of you, the earlier we will start to adopt the solutions.
Thank you so much. So don't worry, you can see that that thing is already going around. So please remember people at the gallery, please remember them so that you don't just forget that some people are there. Some people are here too. So please, you can go to the...
Yeah, Doc, I think the question I have here is part answered by the question itself. The student asks, how can we maximize AI to help in relieving workload and maximizing output, right? So I feel like the student already knows that AI can help them relieve workload and maximize output. So this student probably already knows that they can use things like ChatGPT for assignments and to help them, quickly get to the task. But so I will not talk about the tools and AI. I'm more inclined towards giving the disclaimer about using AI tools for student work. One thing you must look out for is that AI should not replace your mind, and AI should not, the fact that you have AI that can get you quickly to your result should not relieve your time for nonsense, right? Like play and stuff like this. I want to view it like as a student, you should use AI to accelerate your productivity, but then if you can accomplish something using, for example, ChatGPT or maybe autopilot, like code, it's called what? Code generators, right? Code what you will have spent 2 days in doing in 1 hour, then what are you going to use the rest of the time for? Are you going to play games? Are you going to bet, for example? What are you going to do? So I'm inclined to say that please plan your time. AI is going to definitely help you automate things, accelerate your...
That even to start with in school, that tiny project that you do is what could be the difference between you starting out with where you could hardly afford a meal at Red Bricks, and now you're earning about 200K a year. And then to add to that, or to close this finally, I would say, if you are going to work on that sports betting project with stochastic data, I will personally fund you. Or if you build that MVP, I will personally fund you. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's very powerful. Who is going to build it now? The money is on the table. Awesome. So I've been asked a question around if you are going to implement AI in solving or creating sustainable solution around an issue, why should we use only the data related to the issue? Why not use and apply all data and all parameters known to man? Okay, good. Of course, large language model can bring all of that together, but when it comes to well-defined solution, and you have clarity on what needs to be done, we must not go into an overuse of data. It's just like somebody is feeling, you have headache, and many of you here, you go on Google just to check the symptoms. As soon as you check the symptoms, it's given several ideas. Could it be this? Could it be this? You know, you now take all the drugs recommended at the same time, and you just take it in. It's overdose. The same way we have overdose in how we use drug to solve problem is also the fact that we can also use too much data, overuse of data, or overdose of data to solve simple problems. And in terms of concept, there are two concepts around it. In computational science, we call it overfitting. I'm sure you are familiar with overfitting. The mother always laughing, what is the emotional coefficient, and all those things. When I know that the answer is predicted by one variable, and what is that variable, ladies and gentlemen? The special package that has just been delivered. Thank you very much.
Please. Okay, some people have not gotten that package. So, can we clap again for all our panelists? You know, if we are doing a pure academic conference, it will be interesting to some of us, but not to everybody. And that's why I've created this, starting from the first keynote, second keynote, there is a link between the two, and to this panel discussion, to cement the knowledge you are taking away. And so that it can be something useful to you. You're not just coming, and at the end of the day, they've said so many things. What did you gain from there? They said so many things. So we want you to have something you are picking and you are going to use as you are going back. Now, this is not the end of the conference. I want to thank all our panelists. We are not leaving now, but we are leaving soon. So we are going to meet up for the afternoon session, for the breakout session, and also for all the conference participants. I mean, those that register, all our academia from different universities. There's a coastal bus house up for yourself. Thank you so much. But let me appreciate all our LOC members, our professor, I will call him professor, our Fashino, Dr. Akimboro, our grammarian, Dr. Rufai, Dr. Inka Vainjo, Mr. Giaco is here, and where is again? And we have so many visitors here. I've seen Professor Nifade, and I've seen so many of my friends from Babcock University. In fact, they came. They brought a team from Babcock University. You're all welcome. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Many people say me I don't too fumble. Many storm rise and mommy was stumble. You, glory be to God. I'm covered by your blessings. I'm living by your grace. I'm guided by your mercy. And nothing for shit. I'm covered by your blessings. I'm living by your grace. I'm guided by your mercy. No one nothing for shit. If them no one you on top, make you go to church, make you pray to God. You go see the sun, you go see the light, and you go shine bright. Again, you my car, if them no one you on top, make you go to church, make you pray to God. You go see the sun, you go see the light, and you go shine bright. I don't want you sick, Lord, I want you in trouble. Now only tip they pray make you this successful. No, don't want you sick, like I want you in trouble. Now only tip they pray make you this successful. Many hour gas make we check for Google. Many people say me